Hello and welcome to Sooner Space Tuesday. We appreciate you tuning in. Sooner Space Tuesday is live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on Twitter. This week we recap how OU survived against UCF and preview this week's matchup against Kansas. We appreciate you listening.
Just want to say at the start of it, thank you all for joining again. It's been fun having these every Tuesday, and seeing the audience grow has been pretty spectacular, and just something that we've really enjoyed. Colton and Ryan and I try to put some work into prepping for these things. I know a lot of y'all saw the new banner we have now that we got made. I appreciate Colton for getting that worked out, but just trying to kind of make it more of an official Tuesday event and just kind of make it look a little better. But Oklahoma won their game against UCF, improved to 7-0. Last week I brought up a little bit of how this might have been a trap game, and I think we kind of saw a little bit of that, in my opinion. We saw some of, I think, the hangover of the Texas win, it being such an emotional victory for the team. And then we saw a little bit more, or we saw some of and I don't want to say they overlooked them, but I think a little bit of the record came into play. I think that getting Plumlee back and the players that they did off their injury report that they talked about was huge for them. UCF has legit athletes at the skill positions. Plumlee is solid. Both their running backs, I know one of them for sure will be playing on Sundays. And their record is really, really misleading because when they've had Plumlee and a full healthy roster, they've been very, very good. They've been really good. Depends on your standard of very, very good. But they have guys that will give you a lot of problems whenever they're fully healthy, and I think we saw that. Also, last week I kind of talked about a little bit the Angelo Anthony impact. What would that be with him being gone? And I think it showed just how much he was missed on our offense. Him and Gabriel have such good chemistry, especially on third down routes. Andrews has a good combination of speed. He's a really, really good route runner, and he has really, really broad and wide catch radius. And that was kind of missed. And don't get me wrong, Nick Anderson is a stud. He's going to be really good. I was really impressed with his route running. It's kind of funny that his first touchdown that last game was the one that Angel scored on it. I believe it was the SMU game, but I might be mixing up which one it actually was. But I still want to see us be a little bit better and more efficient on those third down routes. I still see, and I don't know what it is on the slant routes that they run. They have to be option routes because the receivers sometimes will keep running when DG thinks they're going to stop and vice versa. And I don't know why they still need to get that worked out because it's going to hurt them eventually late in the game. I guess moving on, the defense I thought was pretty solid except for those few plays. And, busts happen. I think that it was all of us, have said that it was great that we learned these lessons in a win because, heck, I don't care how much you win by or who it's against. Ask North Carolina if they would have liked to beat Virginia by 2 points. It's you get the win and you move to 1-0 on the week. That's most important. And you get to learn these lessons and go back and say, hey, you guys have to realize you got to show up to play every single week. And if you don't, you can get beaten, especially by the teams we're about to face. Kansas. Well, first off, if you haven't seen the In the Weeds by Gabe and Teddy, I think that I would really highly recommend it. They go into depth about what the split zone concepts that gave us issues, or that we ran with Gavin, and then the sprint draw concepts that gave us issues. And Kansas will be running that. One thing good coaches do, my dad taught me this, is they look at what other teams are, what you're bad at defending or what you're bad at running, and they make you either run those plays or they make you defend those plays as well. And we're going to see that more often. So I'm sure Venables and all of them know that, and they'll get it worked out and continue to improve in that aspect. We're playing Kansas coming up this week. I fully expect Jalen Daniels to be the starter. I know that they came out today, the coach did, and said that he expects Bean to be there. They're just quote unquote not sure. And for me, if I'm BV or if I'm the players, I'm fully expecting the defending Big 12. I believe he was Offensive Player of the Year last year to be their starter whenever the offense trots out. And I am excited for the game. They Kansas, I think, will give there definitely be a better test. I think they have better athletes, and a better up front than UCF does. I think DG will be able to have a huge game. I think the passing game will be huge. They're in the triple digits, Kansas is, and overall pass defense. So I expect us to be fairly solid in the pass game. The question for me becomes then, Kansas knows that. They also see that we've struggled to run the ball. And I'm interested to hear Colton's perspective and a few other coaches on how we improve on running the ball, because we're 8 weeks in. At some point, you just are what you are. And from my perspective, to the untrained eye, what I would just put Savion Bird in, start him. Schaefer can come in and give him a spell, but I think Bird has so much more athleticism and a mean streak to him that Schaefer just doesn't have. And at some point, you have to let the running backs and linemen get a gel for timing with each other. I think that is what's missing right now with Sawchuk and with some of these running backs that are in and out so often, is they just don't have any they don't have any chemistry right now, and that really hurts them. People forgetting that Florida State game last year. Gavin Sawchuk got a whole month to prep with that team. He got all the reps. He and Barnes got all the first team reps. They got all the reps with the linemen that were going to be playing, and that builds chemistry and it builds confidence and it builds your timing as you're cutting as a running back. And so, I want to see. I would probably go, if I was the coach. I'd go with starter if I was DeMarco. I'm putting I'm probably starting Tawee Walker because I still think Tawee's your best option overall right now, because I think he understands blocking assignments in the pass game the best. He is their best blocker as a running back that I've seen so far. And I think he understands his responsibilities in the check down game really well. And then I'll probably put Gavin Sawchuk in. And I'd bring Marcus Major in every now and then, but it would be sparingly. I just think Major, he's a solid back. I just don't see much of a breakaway. I don't know if he doesn't trust, he's been injury prone, and I don't know if he's gotten his confidence totally back from that time that he has been injured. And for me, I would, you have to have a guy like Gavin in, Sawchuk in, because he has legitimately world class elite speed. And I think he just needs time. I think you need to give him at least 17 touches, and I want to see him, have the ball put in his hands and let him realize and start believing, like, hey, my hamstring is going to hold up to to the game environment and game intensity. And once that happens, I think you're going to see him really take off. And apart from that, I would like to see them keep an offensive line that's steady with Caden Green and with Savion Bird in. But those are my thoughts. I'll go to Hans. I'll go to Colton first. I know he'll have some thoughts on the offensive line play, and then let's go to Hans. Go ahead, Colt.
Yeah, guys, thanks for being here. No, just a couple things on the offensive line. I mean, you're right. It's week 8. What's going to change at this point? We kind of talked about it last week. Our starting 5 should be Rouse, Green, Rain, Bird, and Guyton. I mean, that's who gives us the best opportunity to win. Do I think we're doing the right things right now? No. I think we're doing a lot of catching on the offensive line versus delivering at the point of attack, and going after these guys. We're keeping our head down. We're not looking at what we're blocking, which leads to missing linebackers, especially on these zone type plays. We didn't kick that into gear until late in the fourth, and when we did figure it out in the fourth, we looked great. I mean, it was those last 2 drives there. Gabe and Teddy broke it down on their podcast in the weeds, and they talked about how the zone is. And one thing we don't do in the zone is you don't let a guy cross your face. And one thing that I thought I saw a lot of on Saturday is we would let the backside guy cross our face, and that guy was making the play 5, 6, 7, 8 times out of 10. And so when you're doing that and you're losing that first step to a guy, you're letting a guy cross your face like they are, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're not creating a cutback. You're getting blown up in the backfield. And so, I don't think we played great. I think the way we answer is we stick with the 5 that worked at the end of the game. We get them as many reps as possible, and somehow Coach B's got to figure out how to get them fired up and get them exploding off the ball better. Did want to highlight one thing. The best offensive lineman this week, I'm going to go with Austin Stogner. Dude was an absolute animal. I know he's a tight end, but if you really watch that game and you watch these zone plays, Gabe said it best. He goes through a car crash every single time we run zone like this. And but I mean, he's delivering. He's delivering these kick out blocks that are freeing guys. Half the time that we were able to move the ball on these guys was because we had Stogner kicking somebody out. And making the move. So, and then, late in the game, we had, I think it was Gibson who had a great block to free Stoops to score the touchdown late. So, we've got guys blocking that aren't necessarily offensive line, and we just need to get our offensive line in check. And I think we're going to be okay. But, we can't keep making excuses for them. Right now, we've got to get better. We've got to get a solid 5, and we've got to get rolling. And I think Rouse, Green, Rame, and Bird, and Guyton, I think that's our 5. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and at some point, I'm worried that teams are just going to start saying, "Look, if you can figure out how to run on this, good for you." But eventually, they're just going to start dropping, 7, 8 back, and just making us, taking away the throw game. And that is going to be an issue, especially whenever you start playing teams that have the back end talent to keep up with our receiving core. So, Jay, go ahead, man. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chad, as usual. Appreciate you letting me know and letting me join in. I kind of want to jump on a couple points with what you made as well as Colton. I think Colton, you were spot on with Stogner. I went back and did some of my rewatches on it. And first off, the offensive line you think of is a great idea. I love the idea of that lineup because it feels like with Caden Green out there at the guard spot, he's just ridiculously good at that position. And I just love how Beatonbow, when he doesn't get the players that we want him to get, you start to see that the versatile offensive lineman that he get really works into what we're trying to do. Like you can move a lot of his players from tackle to guard on both sides of the field, as well as even center sometimes. So we've got players that can play multiple positions, and that helps. But we need to gel the line, get healthy. I think that'll help us long term. Run game wise, I think Salchuk's going to be second half. Make me feel like Salchuk's ready. It seemed like he's not favoring that hammy. He's not hesitating. He hit that hole, got that 30-yarder, and then he had enough burst on that play to where he could run and look at the sideline and ask permission to score the touchdown. So I'm just like, okay, I think you're starting to get more comfortable. So I think we're good with that. And then as far as the routes go, which you was mentioning, Chad, it seems like one of the problems is a lot of teams' linebackers are sitting back waiting for those inside passes. So it was one possession in the, I think it was the third quarter when Nick got that touchdown. I actually think that was the fourth. And they basically kept running it. And of course, everybody was groaning. Why are we running the ball? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? We need to do something else. Do something else. Well, it led to that play action and throw to Nick without a safety up top because they kept pushing up. They recognized that, oh, okay, they're starting to get yards on a run. We probably should do something about it. Moved up, boom, throw it over the top, touchdown, Nick Anderson. So you kind of got to set up those deep passes with runs because you need to make those safeties move up so our guys like Farouk, Nick Anderson, Jay Gibson can also do their thing. And shout out to Emmett Jones. We probably should work on getting that man a raise because our wide receivers are blocking at a ridiculous rate. They're doing a very good job of doing their part to help because that's how we were successful last year. When the receivers blocked, Eric Gray was gone. When the receivers didn't block, we were stopped at like a 1 yard or a loss of downs because they didn't really have anywhere to go. And so we're starting to see improvement on that side of the ball, which was exciting. Now, defensive wise, after my rewatch, this was the one thing I noticed the most. And I think Teddy and them kind of mentioned this a little bit, but it felt like we overcompensated for the RPO quarterback. So basically, we overcompensated for John Rhymes Plumlee. We thought we played him as if he's healthy. And kind of like you mentioned, Chad, Jalen Daniels is potentially going to play. They're saying being now, but it's probably, a strategy against us. But if Daniels isn't 100%, we don't need to overcompensate for him. And the reason is with his back, he gets one shot, he's probably gone from the game because we're not hitting him with little guys. We're hitting him with big dudes. And so I think that was the problem, though, in this game. And when I went back and rewatched it, I kept noticing the linebackers committing a little too much to watch out for Plumlee. And then we would that breakout run, that 54-yard run, Stutzman actually went in on the right a little too far, thinking that Plumlee was going to get the ball, and it left the entire left side of the field open. And when that running back cut back, there was no linebackers. They had Kanik blocked. They had Stutzman in the middle of the field at the center position. And so we just overcompensated for him. And then that long play for Woody Washington. Normally he would stick with the receiver, but Plumlee looked like he was going to scramble. And because of that, he committed without even thinking of the fact that he had I think it was R. Mason Thomas as well as I'm not sure who the other player was with him, but there was two players basically there was going to stop him. Plumlee was not going to run like he normally does, especially with that bum knee. He wasn't going to go anywhere, but we overcompensated for it, and that bit us in the butt twice on two big plays. And so as long as we don't overcompensate for the RPO, knowing it's going to be a threat, but kind of having a spy, I think we'll be fine against Kansas. I don't see Kansas as that much of a threat. I think their biggest threat with them is their run game. But I think our run defense is good enough to prepare for it. So expect a lot of RPO, a lot of fake runs from the quarterback to get us to overcommit so they can open up for Neal to be able to bust through a hole and go. But I think that if we don't overcommit, we'll be fine in that game because that was the thing that cost us against UCF. We kept chasing against JRP as if he can actually run and he can. And if Daniels, I honestly prefer Daniels played in this game, as good as he is, that back is not just going to get better. I mean, he's been having back issues for the last 2 years. So that tells me that you get him on a good tackle, he might not get up. And I don't want it to be a dirty one. I just want to be a standard tackle, but that back might give out. So I'm anticipating that from our defense. But overall in the UCF game, our defense did play well. We got cocky again. We did. After we got those first set of stops, we started looking cocky, like, we'll just, we'll fade back a little bit. We're not going to really commit as hard, but we'll make sure we don't get beat up by a quarterback. So being that he's the first quarterback that we've seen that truly can quote unquote scramble, like scramble, we didn't play it as good as we should have. We won the game, thank goodness, 7-0. We'll take it, but we've got to start being a little bit more aware of knowing when a guy's going to potentially scramble or not. Just at least have a spot prepared for it.
Yeah, and that's such a good point on being, because I'm sure that they've made an effort to be, they've been teaching them, run disciplines, especially the defensive lineman, on not getting past the level of the quarterback and being able to crash in. But like you're saying, man, whenever you're dealing with a guy that's fresh off injury, there, not that you need to be lax about that, but that you need to, you don't have to be as sold out. And like whenever Woody just came up to make the tackle, I don't know if he just misjudged where the line of scrimmage was or what, but I'm glad he learned that lesson now in a win. And so in the future when that happens, if Kansas, for example, tries to run that same play, man, even if you're the only one on that side of the field, it is better to give up, 15 yards than to try to get the stop at the line of scrimmage and you gauge it incorrectly and now you're giving up a touchdown. So
exactly.
I'm glad that that was wild. But hey, let me go to Tattoo. Go ahead, dude. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Chad, for putting this on. I know a lot of people love this. So, but Colton, to go back to your point for offensive lineman of the game, like he saved the game. RSJ, it bounces off his pads, hits the ground, and he jumps on it. I feel like at that moment, UCF had a lot of momentum. If he doesn't get that, we're done. Because it was only a 2-point game, they kick a field goal. So. I feel like the game, like we said before, that we felt really good. 2 back-to-back 3-and-outs or 4 or 5 plays, 8 total, right? Kept them on the other side of the 50, but I really felt like it was a weird called game. Like going back to the official wise, it was weirdly called because everybody thought in the stadium that touchdown didn't count when he blew the kiss to the sideline, and then it counted in the kickoff. But then when you look back at the play, there was the lineman 5 yards down the field. So it was that was weird. So it wouldn't have been a touchdown. The pass interference call, that was not pass interference on Jaden Gibson that we ended up getting 3 points for. I just felt like it was a sloppy ref game too. Maybe that's how they drew it up or whatever. But I felt like there was a few misses here and there, and it's just like the Cincinnati game. If we have a few here, few there, it's a 40-point win, or 40-6 rather than 20-6. And also too, like, I know we had a bye week, but you can't heal up in whatever 2 weeks. Like they're still gonna feel the hits of Texas. I really feel like we're going to try to play our best ball against Oklahoma State and then see where the chips may fall after that, because it's a season of runs. How we going to do this? So, and then I feel like chasing undefeated is going to be harder and harder because you don't want to lose to UCF. They're 3 and whatever. But they got Plumlee back, and then you don't want to lose to Bedlam, their last ever Bedlam, and then you don't want to lose to a what was the last one? You don't lose the last game before the Big 12 championship, because if we lose to TCU, who cares?
TCU, yeah.
But it's just like a sour taste. So it's really like you want to keep this momentum hot, but it's hard to hold on to this damn momentum when it's literally vibrating and it's hard. It's like an electric fence. You're trying to hold on. So,
Man, and the hardest thing when you're undefeated is just, is just playing
yeah,
free, playing like you're not, because you're trying to. It's kind of like whenever you have a good round of golf
yeah,
going, and you're trying not to screw it up, so you start being, swinging
yeah.
you're trying to save swings and not take
And
risks, and you just can't do
that's
that.
why
Go ahead.
Patty she lost the game early. Not on purpose, whatever. But she was so thrilled that she lost the game, got the nerves out, and then the girls could play basketball. They literally lost to Baylor and then beat UCLA, number one team in the nation, 15-0. Like, I don't want it to happen to OU because that's the nature of the beast. Obviously, nobody wants to lose to any of these teams because I feel like the detriment to the season could hinge on that. Like us missing the playoff if it's all undefeated versus OU that lost. Like even though we won, we still didn't get in. Or we won the championship, but still didn't get in.
Well, especially what worries me now is and I'll go to Hans because we got a few up there right now. But what worries me now is with the Ewers injury.
Yeah,
I think Murphy has some talent, but it's hard to judge high school
yeah.
film and see how that correlates to Division One.
Or the pressure of just being
We need
QB1.
them to win out. Yeah, exactly. I just that's to me seems. I'm hoping Texas can continue to get wins as much as that pains me to say because we need them to. All right, next up, let's go to Jared. You were next, and then I'm gonna go to PLS.
Hey, sorry, my dog's losing his mind right now, but you can come back to me. He's being an idiot.
All right, dude. No worries. Go ahead, Dad. PLS. I don't know what to call you other than Dad, and no one else here knows who I'm talking to.
Well,
Paul is just too. I've never called you Paul, and that just sounds odd to me. But go ahead.
okay. Hey, I was just gonna, I watched In the Weeds too, but I think something that nobody's talked about, and I've really watched this play. We ran this play when I was coaching, so this sprint draw is a really good play. It's really meant to be cut back, but they got six offensive linemen blocking 5. And we're running man coverage, but we're not running man coverage because when the tight end motions, nobody goes with him. So if the tight end were to run a pass route, he'd have been wide open. So the problem is we were in man coverage, if you'll watch. And when he motions over, if we have that extra guy over there covering him, we make the play. He does not score a touchdown. So there are some little things that are happening on defense that's not getting done. And another thing too is in the blocking scheme, some of our linemen, everybody says watch the ball. When you do that, and the lineman is turning out or whatever, you need to know if he's turning out. You just don't go inside because now you're blocked and you don't have any contain. So some of that stuff is happening. Everybody fitted up right, but they didn't have enough people over there. And when it's sprint draw, that end to the sprint draw side, he has got to contain the quarterback. And he thinks it's pass, and that's why you run it. But if you have the guy in the man coverage and he moves over when that tight end motion's over, if he moves over where he's supposed to, because it's man coverage, you have the extra guy to make the play. That's in the weeds for me, but that's something that I see as a defensive coach, and we didn't do that in this particular play. And it's just the same thing on the long pass play. The guy got his eyes in the backfield, and Jay's already talked about that, and he was right. But normally that doesn't happen. But that one play is why that happened. Is we're misaligned, we're man coverage, and if you'll see the play of the safety that should have gone with him, he drops out of there like zone. If you see the top two guys, they're manned up on 1 and 2, which is the outside receiver, inside receiver, and the safety's safety. But that's in the weeds for me. I just had to get that out there. But a lot of people, don't see. They see the front 7, but they don't realize what's happening in the back end. And that's what I coached and played in college. But that is what happened in that play.
Is that just install stuff? I mean, that's fixable? You would assume throughout the week as you kind of go along. Go ahead.
They had to. I know they worked that all week. I mean, that sprint draw is something you work on, but what they don't work on is the defensive coordinator is calling blitzes. He's calling different defenses, and you've got to react to all that stuff. it's hard. I mean, that's just it's just hard, and it's they say, well, they're running a base defense here. Well, we're really not, because you're running man, and that's not base. Usually, base defense, you're running a zone. We run a lot of zone, and so that's what happened there. And when you do a lot of blitz and a lot of stuff, sometimes you get misaligned. I mean, that just happens because the offenses are so good at disguising stuff, motioning, trading the end back and forth. I mean, they do it on purpose, and so that's why it's hard if you put too much in. But other than that, they've played really well. I'm not dishing on them. It's just that one play I think it was interesting how we got 6-on-5 and the guy motions and our guy doesn't go over there and cover. He just goes over there. We have the extra guy to make the play, maybe for a 10-yard gain, but not a touchdown. So it would really helped.
Just to piggyback off Coach's point, Coach, I think what I saw them, they were actually going into man against our zone too when we would motion Stogner, and they were actually sending the guy with Stogner most of the game. So what they were doing, we weren't executing. Is that what you were seeing?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, you can use it against them. A lot of times you'll do that to see if you're in man or zone. They do it in the NFL all the time. That's why they motion. And once they motion, the quarterback knows. He knows that I got a single high or a two high safety, and that tells him where he's going to put the ball. And you can do that in college. Heck, we did it in high school. I mean, but I was in 6A, but it's a little different when you're lower. But in college football, that's what they do, the same thing, And yeah, that's exactly what I see.
Let me go back to Jared real quick, since he hopefully has the dog taken care of.
Yeah, he's under wraps now. Sorry about that. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you guys putting this together. Look forward to it every week. No, I just one of the things I think that kind of set the tone early was getting good field position for possessions in a row and only getting 7 points out of that. And I think that kind of maybe plays into kind of how our defense responded after that. And just that mindset, I feel like kind of got to them. But we've got to be better about if we get the ball at midfield, because they shanked 2 punts from what I remember. We've got to go put it in the end zone, or at least get 3 points out of it. Like, we've got to have better production out of special teams as well. Overall, I thought the defense did pretty good outside of like 2 big busted plays for the most part. That big run that they had, which honestly, I respect to UCF, man. They got some pretty good talent, some good skill set guys. So, for us to respond and put together a couple drives late and get the win, I think was good test to what BV's been able to do this year. And I think a season ago, a lot of us would have expected us to drop that game pretty easily, and that was kind of my mindset watching that football game. But just some cleanup things that need to happen from a coaching standpoint, it sounds like. But I don't know. I mean, I think overall it was just kind of a sloppy game, and I think we saw a lot of sloppy football this past weekend. OU wasn't the only team that struggled this past weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. But that's just kind of my perspective. It was an early onset kind of thing, and we were just kind of climbing that hill from the get-go.
Yeah, well, and I will say, there's something to be seen, and then I'm going to go to a Prime and then Sooner RX. But there's something to be said about, not that you want to be in those kind of games, especially when you're playing teams that you are, you should, if you play well, beat pretty handily. If OU plays like OU plays, they should have covered against them. But there is something to be said, I think, for, you're consistently needing to get production in the fourth quarter when you have to get it. And for the game, we go back-to-back drives and score touchdowns. Texas, we go and obviously that final drive, and then the UCF game as well. So we have been able to, when we have to, get the drives together and deliver in the clutch, and that has to mean, and that has to translate into a lot of confidence for our offense moving forward, especially for like Dylan Gabriel and just I think the receivers as well, and the linemen, to trust that they can get the job done as well. But let me go to Prime and then Sooner. What's up, man?
So I didn't get to watch the second half of the game. Not that I really wanted to after that first half, but my comments are based solely on the first half, just for reference. But I think like the main thing that I noticed outside of a certain kicker is our rhythm when we're not able to run the football is just so bad. And I saw it like obviously we saw it a lot last year, and it's like that game, that first half just really reminded me of last year's like way that we just I don't even know I don't know what the word to put it as. It's just like it felt off. Like that felt like a game that last year 100% we lose. But for some reason I had that like just weird feeling like we were going to drop this game, like the offense just came out pretty flat, and they throw in Sawchuk for 3 plays. He makes two pretty bad errors, and then I didn't see him for the rest of the first half, didn't give him like any carries, which is like I mean, I obviously I didn't watch the second half, so I heard that he finally, got it going in the second half, and I really hope that versus Kansas, he turns it around, because I think that our if Gavin Sawchuk can be the Gavin Sawchuk that we saw in that FSU game, we genuinely have a very good shot at making a push for the playoffs in such a wide open year. But if we can't establish a run game at some point in the year, like establish a rhythm offensively whenever everything isn't clicking and now we're out our number one wide receiver for the rest of the year, if we can't establish a guy like Sawchuk to be able to go out and get you 4 yards, 5 yards, break out a big run, like it's it's worrying me that we will drop one game because of like inability to establish rhythm and then missing a whole bunch of kicks. But I think my that was like a sloppy game. I know it's been said, but like that game very easily can be a multi-score win if Kanik doesn't yell in his face and we don't get that dumb penalty. If we make a few kicks and if we have better eyes on 1 or 2 plays, like we cover the spread. But that's the things is those little things build up so aggressively. So I think just the key to Kansas this week is genuinely just establishing, like, getting some running back to mesh with whatever the 5 offensive linemen are and get that rhythm established, and then the offensive pass game opens up so much more. That's my 2 cents on it.
No, you're absolutely right, and I mentioned in the intro today. Just I want to see Sawchuk and Tawi for the majority of the game, and I would like to see Sawchuk get a minimum amount of carries around 17.
Sure.
You have to get him in there, and you have to let him feel let him start trusting his hammy, and letting the lineman kind of get a feel into chemistry for how he likes to run the ball and his timing. Because that's what was so great with Kennedy Brooks. If you remember watching him, he was so patient. And it's because he knew that the hole would be there eventually. He just needed to let it develop. Let me go to Sooner RX, and then Scotty, and then actually H. Joseph, and then Scotty. Go ahead, Sooner.
Hey, thanks. I mean, you guys have hit on a lot of the stuff that I was thinking about. The Kanik penalty was incredibly dumb. The missed field goals, incredibly unfortunate. I was watching the broadcast, and I think it was the middle of the second quarter, and they were saying that Central Florida hadn't had 2 consecutive positive gain plays in the game. So the defense was playing incredible the first half. Absolutely incredible. They got zero help from the offense. And I think what can't be understated is Gus Malzahn can coach. Dude knows some offense. His misdirection plays, I was like, we need to steal that play. We absolutely need to steal some of those plays. Prime talked about rhythm. That's my question. What team is this? Are we a passing team? Are we a running team? Everybody says we want to have balance, but you have to be able to do something, right? So what I see from this season so far, be a passing team. Our wide receivers are dominating. I mean, I'm on the Emmett Jones bandwagon on give that dude a raise. They are dominating people. And when they have to bail out to cover those thoroughbreds, the running lanes will be there. Then go ahead and run the clock out. But, I mean, overall, I thought the defense played very well, minus a handful, and I mean an absolute handful of plays. The offense leaves something to be desired, and I think rhythm is the right word. We don't know what we do well enough to run that thing in our sleep.
Yeah, and I don't mind this being a pass first offense at all. I think that Dylan can definitely do that, especially because he's so good at, knock on wood right now, but not turning the ball over. The only issue I have, and it's what Prime is saying too, is whenever if we're going to make a push at legitimately winning a playoff game this year, we have to have some sort of ability to establish a run, because whenever we get, my dad could talk more about this, but whenever you get to defenses that can run 3-4 defenses with good athletes up front and good size, they roll. They can roll into simple cover 3 and play like one high fronts, or play quarters with a 7-man front, and it gets really really hard to throw the ball effectively against those defenses. And not being able to run the ball well right now, I'm worried that we're going to get to a team that eventually just says, look, we'll man you up outside, and we will make sure that you aren't going to. You might be able to throw it on us some, but you're not going to get the windows you've been getting through Big 12 play. And I think we can establish a run, and I think Sawchuk eventually will be that guy for us. But that's my only issue with not issue, I shouldn't say, my only concern with us just going heavy pass. And I'm not saying you're wrong at all. You totally could be right, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea at all. But that's just kind of, what do you think of that? Kind of just my worries on that end.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong, but what I've seen out of this wide receiver group versus what I saw out of the wide receiver group last year, DG had to put the ball in a shoebox to get a completion because they could not get separation. It was a Marvin Mims deep ball or it was nothing, right? Well, this year, dude, our guys are running 2 and 3 yards away, and even if they're side by side with them, they're bigger than all of them. So pretty much they're open no matter what. Now, I do think DG got bailed out by the refs on that interference call in the end zone. I thought that was a pick.
Yeah, I was screaming that it was PI, but then the replay came up, and I might have been like, well, if that happened to OU, I'd be screaming at my TV. But
that was me.
Yeah, let me go to Joseph, and then Scotty. I'll go to you next. What's up, H?
What's up, Chad? I just wanted to come in here and reminisce with you guys that it was a pleasure. Kind of being, in lockstep with you guys for my hate of Lincoln Riley as the University of Utah fan. I've gotten, I feel like, brothers in arms with you guys a little bit, as you guys have trolled USC for the past year and a half. And it seems like we broke him in half on last Saturday, and he won't show up to work now. And you guys, the trolling I'm seeing on Twitter is from OU fans is absolutely priceless. And I've been laughing my ass off constantly in tears for the last 24 hours. So anyway, that's all I got.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, look, we'll definitely you give us a chance to be petty, we'll take it. Absolutely. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for hopping on.
Hey, Joseph, check the
Scotty B, man. Oh, wait. Check the jumbo. Oh, there you go. First time we've averaged 6 yards a game, thanks to. Oh wait, you just came. Yep. That's awesome. Scotty B, go ahead, man.
Yeah, hey, a couple of my points have already been touched on a little bit, and I apologize for not being present here. I'm currently in New Orleans for a work event and ran upstairs to my hotel room to hop on with you guys. But, it's been a common theme that I've heard because I've listened to the replays of this, but just the mindset, right? Like, I think a lot of us expected us to lose that game based off of kind of what we've seen from us the past couple of years. I'm sitting there watching this game and I'm saying, I've read this book, man. We're going to lose this game. And just the mindset that BV has instilled in this team is it's different, right? Like, we haven't seen this in a long time. From a Shawshank standpoint, like you just noted on it, Chad, like he's the first person that I've seen since Kennedy Brooks that was patient enough to wait for the hole. And I think he needs to see more touches because it's so pleasing to watch a running back sit there and be patient and wait for it to open up and then just hit it. And so I think that's definitely something that we need to see more of. Marcus is a great player, but he's not that person that's going to sit there and be patient and wait for it. And then I think that they did a really good job of selling out to pass protection, right? Like I think I saw Dylan Gabriel have all the time in the world and not have anybody open outside of a couple big plays that we had. We wouldn't have had that many passing yards. So like the fact that we couldn't run the ball on these guys when they're selling out, they've got 3-man front and we just can't run the damn ball. It was mind blowing. And I thought Dylan did a great job of, checking down. And I wish he would have run a little bit more. We saw that a lot in the Texas game. And I thought that he had opportunities to, utilize that again. That just wasn't. I don't know if that's play calling or what, but no, you guys have done a great job of kind of hitting all the points that I wanted to make before I even got the chance to say it. But I don't know. Some of you defensive guys out there, I'm not a football guru like most of you, but were they selling out to stop the pass, or were their secondary really good? Because I felt like we just never had anybody open unless it was a busted coverage or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe you guys have some feedback on that.
Go ahead, Cole.
I thought their secondary played really well. I thought they played about as good as you could get. But I think our offensive line, our passing scheme in the offensive line has always been great all year long. I feel like Dylan's had ample amount of opportunity, other than a few blunders here and there. Seems to have a good amount of time to pass. But Saturday, I thought that their defensive backs played a great game, played a good coverage game, and kind of seatbelted a couple of guys. So, as far as having a lot of time in the pass game, I think we're going to continue to see that. I think our offensive line is more poised as a pass protection unit, but we have got to develop that run oriented offense, because if we don't, like we've all said here, one-dimensional football teams don't win championships. It just doesn't happen. So you got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to throw the ball. Got to be able to do them in unison. And so right now, we're doing one great. We're just not doing the other very good at all. So I think their defensive backs played great. I think that was the answer.
They did. The thing is, they had a couple of defensive linemen that were studs too, and I know I've watched Coach Gibbs' defenses, and he had it schemed up really well, had them really well coached. He had some really good athletes in the back end. They made some really good plays. They're athletic, and they were. It was impressive to watch them play. And guys, that was a good defense. I mean, they played well, and they'd get on our receivers, and they stuck on them, and they were really good. And that one pass interference in the end zone, when you go watch back the replay, you really wonder if that was pass interference. But it was that guy was good. He was a good defensive back, and I think they schemed it up really well against OU, and they were really physical up front, and some of their defensive linemen matched up with our linemen pretty well, and I think coming from where we went and won. I mean, you realize that last drive we can't make a mistake, or we lose the ball game, and our offense they stuck it up and went after it. And when Sawchuk got to handle the ball a little bit more, you could see that he got into the rhythm. If you ever played running back, you need to be able to carry the ball a few times and catch that rhythm. And once you catch that rhythm, and you saw it, he started moving. He could read. He started reading things, started feeling good, and that's why he ended up scoring. We blocked it well, but that's why we ended up scoring. But overall, I was impressed with our offense on that last drive. I mean, you talk about pressure. Everything had to go right, and it did. And you got to, man, it just says a lot about our offense and our gut and it speaks a lot about our head coach, what he's instilling in our team. So, I really, I was at the game, and Dwayne, I know you're on here sitting behind, we were high five and everything. We get frustrated, but it was a lot of fun. It was frustrating, but what a relief. 7-0, and I'll take it.
It's the dream wake up call game. You get the win. It's not going to really affect you if you can get a win this weekend in terms of a ranking on the playoff front or in the selection committee. And BV gets to go in there and tell his guys, hey, it's not going to be easy. I don't care what the media says or whatever, how good you think you are. You're going to get everyone's best shot, and you're going to be playing teams that have elite athletes in certain positions that can end up beating you if you don't show up and play a good game. So it's especially with Kansas coming up. You look at if they see Jalen Daniels run on the field, how excited, how much energy is going to be in that stadium? How much are the fans going to be up for that game then if they see him trot out? So, there are other considerations besides just, just assuming you're going to win whenever you have the better athletes or team. And I think that they learned. I think that, you're still dealing with kids at the end of the day. And sometimes it can be hard to really teach them a lesson without them having to be taught the lesson, themselves. So let me go next to Wallace and then Jay.
Hey guys, Wallace here. Paul talked about David Gibbs. We talked about that last week. This game actually played out exactly the way I thought it would, with David, scheming him up on defense. He was actually part of the national championship Colorado Buffalo team there in the late 80s. I talked about the lack of running game and et cetera, et cetera. I feel like this week's going to be different. And let's start this preface with, we've only had 3 undefeated teams, 2 perfect teams since 1956. 1974 was perfect, 2000 was perfect, 1973 we had a tie. So at this point of the season, you start, okay, what games can we lose if we're going to lose? Against Kansas, you're talking about that stadium. It sits in a valley. Campus is on a hill. It's not a home field advantage unless these guys have a lead in the fourth quarter. I've been there a couple of times. I think we're going to beat their ass, honestly. I think Walker's our number 1 running back. He was out. He's going to come back. I think Sawchuk's going to be number 2. And I think we're going to get on a roll. Anthony got hurt. That was a weird deal. Our wide receivers are figuring it out. The only way I can see us losing this game is, think back 2002, Texas A&M, Reggie McNeil. They get hot there at the end. We get a lead, then we go stale. But at this point, I'm all in. We're good. We're going to lose a game, maybe. Everything's going to work itself out. The defensive line, all the guys are really good. The linebackers, the guys are great. Our secondary has some potential superstars. We had some breakdowns, but again, if we can just keep that stuff, get it fixed, I don't think this is the trap game. The trap game's coming down the line. Anyway, that's all I had. But Paul, you and I knew what David Gibbs was going to do.
Oh yeah, been around him a few times. He's a good coach.
Yeah, I'm the trap game. I'm thinking. By the way, Wallace, I saw your Instagram. Were you at was there like a video project you were doing or something like that?
Oh, I was on KREF. I produced a documentary called Wishbone that's going to come out next year. It's 1968 to 1980. Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama will be the sequence. Texas won the national championship twice running the Wishbone. Then we ran it in the 70s, won a couple national championships. Then Alabama. So that's what that was about. I was produced the Oklahoma piece of that documentary. It's an ESPN film. It's going to be on the SEC Storied brand. That's going to premiere probably SEC Media Days next June. And then also I snapped a photobomb pic of Boz. We were playing around a little bit, and that's been circulating quite a bit on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, that was pretty neat, man. It looked like a fun time. Tattoo, I was going to go to you next if you want to hop back up here in a minute, but let me go to Jay. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to kind of piggyback on those defensive scheming by UCF. I feel like we're kind of overlooking and really not giving props to Gus Malzahn and how good of a coach he actually is. We got to keep in mind, he said that himself in his big speech. You saw the video. We all retweeted it, talking about, this was one of, if not the best team in the country you played against. You should be excited about how you play, blah, blah, blah. And so, a lot of people looking at that like, okay, it's UCF. They play good against a team they probably didn't have a chance of beating. But remember, not only did Malzahn go 9-4, 9-5 the first 2 years there at UCF, that dude gave Nick Saban hell while he was at Auburn. And that was in the prime of what Bama was doing. Like, that man is known for scheming up creative offenses and just giving hell to Kirby Smart as well as Nick Saban, two of the best minds on the defensive side of the ball. And so we knew that they were going to come out there and be creative. We knew that they was going to throw some stuff at us that was going to really challenge us. And to be honest, I don't think there's any other coach on our schedule that's really going to do that to us. Now, as Wallace mentioned, I think the trap game is BYU. It's going to be cold. It's going to be high altitude, and it's there in their stadium. That's the only game that's made me nervous because they usually come in with enough discipline and on the defensive side of the ball to where you might get a little nervous playing against them. And so when, just seeing the way they played this year, they haven't been the greatest, but they still look like Utah does. Defense travels. And especially when you're at home, if you're disciplined enough, you can do it. But I think that Gus, I put a lot of weight on the words he said about how good of a team we are. It's rat poison for the team, but for us as fans, you should appreciate that because, like I said, he beat Saban 3 times, twice when Saban was number 1 in the country and once when he was number 5. He gave that man hell with Auburn, a school that we know have issues, not only with boosters, but just everything around them. That place is just cursed. They've got problems. And so with him being able to do that for as long as he did, I think it was stupid that they fired him, but I digress. We got to, appreciate the fact that, we played a pretty good game against a guy that knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, well, and he's known, like you just like you were saying, man, he's known for being able to scheme up and create, tough matchups at every level for the defense. So I was excited to just see us, even with what he was bringing, seeing us kind of control ourselves, realize that or be able to calm down and end up getting a drive together and get some stops when we needed it. Kendall Dolby was huge on the tackle on the 2-point, obviously, but I think we did a lot of really good stuff for what Malzahn and what UCF can bring. And again, I think all this just is an amalgamation, or it's going to end up being an amalgamation of just confidence building moments that later in the year is going to be huge for us. Because I agree with Wallace. I think our trap game, and I think BYU will be tough, but this Bedlam game that's coming up. And not even trying to overlook Kansas even, because I do think they create legitimate challenges too. But this Oklahoma State game that's coming up, with it being the last Bedlam, like someone else is pointing out, and with them having a really good running back and starting to finding a rhythm offensively, I think that could be, especially, and it's in Stillwater, I think that could be a game where, and it's OU against a Big 12 team with, Big 12 reffing. That I'll just say that, not that that's an end all be all at all, but just I know it's in the back of all of our minds a little bit. That's a game that I'm keeping my eye on because that is a game that they want to win more than any game, any Bedlam in the past, because it's going to be the last one for a while. And, I'm excited to see how we're going to go into that and kind of how we build off this loss and we play against UCF and then how we go into Bedlam. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, that's fair to say that. And honestly, that even can lead to Kansas being that trap game because it could be a game we overlooked them in preparation for Bedlam because that's in-state bragging rights. That's in-state, shit talking. We may we could potentially, especially if Bean is the quarterback. So, that does make you have to be a little more cautious about Kansas. So that's something definitely not to downplay. But I just feel like I kind of agree with Wallace on this one, though. I do think it's later in the season where, and as you mentioned, you said this perfectly, that each of these games have been building blocks to what we need to be by the end of the season because we have to build, which I love BB always says, 1-0 each week. It's the only thing we care about. Because we have to build up. If we finish this season undefeated, we go to the playoffs. We have to have learned enough lessons down the road to where once we play that first playoff game, we're prepared for whoever we have to see. And then if we can beat that one, be even more prepared for whoever we see in the championship game. So, it's all building blocks, growth. And I love the fact that we're finding ways to win games, even when it looks like it's giving everybody else PTSD because it's the stuff that we normally lose.
Yeah, and these games, and then I'll go to use RX in 1 second, but just these games happen. I kept talking to a bunch of my friends about Georgia, Missouri last year. You had what was it, Auburn and LSU in 2019. I believe it was Auburn that they almost lost to Auburn. LSU did. Then you had in 2010 with Cam Newton, you had Kentucky almost beating them. It's these games like that happen. It's just dealing with college kids, and sometimes you just have to find a way to get the win. Bama's in a tough game with USF. And the good teams figure out a way to win, and then you can fix issues on the back end. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to feel a flow of a game and just realize that good teams at the past, what we've learned from watching them is that they find a way to win those games, or for whatever reason, you just don't have it clicking on all cylinders. So that has been kind of something that I've been excited to kind of see as we've built up, and like you've been talking about. But let me go to Sooner RX real quick. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on some of what you guys were saying. The way I kind of look at it is good teams beat the teams they're supposed to. Real good teams beat those teams plus a team or two they're not supposed to. And then great teams beat a whole bunch of teams they probably shouldn't have in the first place. So right now, we beat Texas. If you had said at the beginning of the year, OU is going to have 2 losses, tell me who they were. I guarantee you Texas would have been one of those teams that you were saying. Okay. Well, we beat Texas. So right now, to me, we're in that real good space. We're 7-0, and we're still getting better. We've still got things to work on. It's not like in the past where we were looking at, Lincoln Riley's defense and saying, holy crap, this cannot actually get fixed. There is no fix. We're winning games, but this can't be fixed. Well, all the stuff we're seeing now, all this stuff can be fixed. You were talking about trap games, and I don't necessarily see a full-on trap game on our schedule, but I do think the OSU game presents some different challenges simply because it's the second leg of a road game. That, I think, is going to be a little different for this team because, one, we played in Tulsa. It was a 70-30 crowd in Tulsa. We played in the Cotton Bowl. It was a 50-50 crowd. Yes, we played in Cincinnati, but that second leg is probably going to be the most venomous leg that we see all year, including BYU. I don't think they're going to be as mad as O State is. But the good news about playing O State is Mike Gundy's still their coach, and he's 3-15 against OU. So I think that's going to be probably the biggest challenge, but I have full faith in Mike's ability to screw it up.
Well, I mean, for my sake, I hope he does. But I also like the test and figuring out how to beat a good team on the road, and winning Bedlam's always difficult, but it'll always be. I think it's always just a fun game and one that's always unpredictable. Especially like you look at how it went last year. You go up 28-0, and then the most crazy season that happens. We don't you win 28-0, and it was just like it's just such a weird game. Jeremy, what's up, man?
I don't know if anybody talked about it, but my daughter is running state cross country in Lawrence Saturday morning, and the high is supposed to be 45, windy, and a chance of rain.
Tattoo actually just messaged me and mentioned that he had to drop off for a sec, but he said that the weather, I guess, is supposed to be 50% chance of rain after half.
Yes, 15 to 20 mile an hour wind out of the north, and the high is 45.
He's at. Go ahead, Tattoo.
Well, I was just looking at the weather, and then lost my point or whatever when I was talking about.
I think you muted yourself accidentally. Go ahead.
I didn't mute myself. I have one hand on my phone.
Yep.
Maybe it was Colton.
Oh, well, maybe
he didn't let me have a good point. Like the pressure of winning, that's I lost it. But yeah, it could turn into the 2014 game where Samaje Perine took off. I know that PY Tallwee's going to be hungry. Obviously, whatever happened personnel wise, I'm sure he feels bad about it and wants to come out and show out because he's been in the out of high school 3 years now, so technically he could be gone after this if he kills it. The latter half of the season, everybody's going to remember that, and he could get drafted either crazy 1, 2, or 3. So just coming from a guy that was a walk on or had to walk on at OU, to be drafted would be insane. And I love the kid, talk to him all the time. But yeah, if it turns into a hog mollies game, I like OU because obviously Oklahoma State was pushing Kansas around. So if we can hold on to the football, keep it away from Bean and or Daniels, I feel like we could do a lot of damage, like Wallace was talking about. So
Yeah, it's a great point. In the Tawi story, I love because, and I guess none of us really know, maybe some do, why he actually was suspended last week but seeing his OU DNA episode and the highlight on him I really enjoyed that. But he has a kid and he seems like a really good father and a good relationship with his wife and just someone that you root for because he seems like such a solid guy. But Paul, go ahead.
I'm your dad. You know that, right?
He's literally my father, for those thinking he's joking.
Yeah, I got you. May the force be with you. Anyway, what I was going to say, I'm sitting here watching the Kansas and Oklahoma State game and some of the other games, and guys, they run every formation, every play in the book that you can think of. They're running an unbalanced line here with a tight end that's eligible. The two outside receivers are on the line. The inside receivers not, and they score a touchdown with the tight end. So I think it's really going to be critical that our defense. I know we're really aggressive, but we got to be smart about alignment. And if we can just line up with the athletes that we have, because I don't think their offensive line's that good, and we can rush forward and get to that quarterback and get lined up right and make them beat us. And I think on the other end of that, on offense, you guys talked earlier about maybe throwing the ball a little bit more, but I think with we coming back in Sawchuck, I think we have a chance to get a little bit of a better running game, and just for giggles here, we might need to put in that sprint draw because that looked like a pretty good play. And there was a couple of reverses that we might want to look at and put in too, because that guy at UCF is an awesome coach. I've watched him for a long time. I love what he does on offense. It gives not defensive nightmares with what he did at Auburn, especially. But this game scares me. I'm an old guy, and I remember when we had all these great teams that went into Kansas and we'd fumble the ball 7 times or whatever, and we'd get beat. And I'm like, well, it's Kansas. And they weren't good. I mean, they weren't like they are now. So I'm kind of a little bit worried, especially if the wind's blowing and it's raining a little bit, So defense I think, is going to really have to play well. And if we can get a running game, I think we'll handle them. But I'm looking at them, and there's a lot of formations. There's a lot of different runs they're going to do, and I promise you they're going to put in the sprint draw and try to test us there. So, but I'm going to hold my breath saying this isn't a trap game, that this could be the one. And I don't see it with OSU. That's like OU Texas. I mean, we're going to try to kill them, but that game and the BYU game are the two games that worry me right now.
are you always worried, or is it really just Kansas right now?
Well, no. Well, it's like Venables says. You got to play each week. I mean, every team has Division I athletes, and they can beat you if you don't play well. But Kansas worries me just a little bit because of that on their offensive. I don't know that their defense is good. When I watched them, especially against Texas, they did some things that were unsound. I'm sure they fixed it because they got good coaches over there. But and OSU, of course, they got that stud running back now, number 0. He's really good. They use him a lot, and they throw the ball to him in the middle of the field. It's called an angle route where you read he angles he runs right at the linebacker. The linebacker drops, they throw it right to him. If he doesn't, they throw it over the top. It's just a high-low thing, and they're starting to run that play. And they really hurt Kansas doing that. But yeah, we're going to have if we're not ready to play, we're going to be in trouble. And but I don't see that. This is just different. I'm kind of like the rest of you guys. I'm thinking of the last few years. I get nervous because we're going to have that letdown that Chad and I always, oh my gosh, this always happens to us. We're OU fans. Well, I don't see it this way. I think our head coach is so different and instill things different in our players and in our coaches. That's important, man. Our coaches got to be on board, and I see that they all are. And but we're going to have to be ready. We're going to be sound on defense and be able to get lined up first. That's the main thing, is getting lined up and everybody knows who they've got, and let's go play football. And if they do that, we'll win the game.
And that's what's so funny about just the basics of Tattoo. Are you raising a hand or were you waving? Oh, he's waving. All right. But what's so funny about like the basics, like you were saying, Venables will say, do your job. And it's just, it would seem so simple that you would just line up and do your responsibility. But it's so hard, especially when you're dealing with really good athletes, for them not to try to make plays that, they have the athleticism maybe to make if it was just an isolated, event. But in the context of like a larger scheme of defense, just doing your job can be so difficult. And really good teams, that's why Iowa is always really good on defense. They're just so fundamentally sound, and they truly stick to just doing what they're supposed to do. And if we can develop that on really both sides of the ball, on the offensive line side of it, and on the defenses overall, which like you've always said too, it's really hard to do with how good schemes are now offensively. And really good offensive schemes, what they do a lot of the times, and it's a lot of people, if you want to, like, really good offensive minds are really good at making mismatches with the slot receivers, because that's where you can get a lot of really quick athletic guys on linebackers or on safeties who are fast but bigger than what corners normally are. And when they're able to do that, especially with motions and especially with a lot of movement pre-snap, it makes it very, very difficult on a defense. And what helps in dealing with that is just being sound in terms of your eyes and in terms of knowing your assignments. And that obviously is not as easy in a Venables defense because of how complicated it is. But Dad, I just remember you always talking about that, just being fundamentally sound with the gap schemes and with what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, if you can get lined up, you can go play. But if you're not lined up correctly, or you don't have the right call on the back end, you're not, you can't, you're beat by alignment. But it's something you said, do your job. Well, you got to give them the why, and if you give them the why, then they understand what the job is. And then your coaches have got to coach them on what that job is, and they got to be technicians. And you see that on OU.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
DNA, when they interview some of those individual coaches and they talk about it, they talk more than football. They talk life, which is so important. And so they buy into the program, and so they give them the why. And as long as they know what the why is, they're going to be on board, and they'll get better each week playing technique. And that's so important as a coach, to give them the why.
What is there a, I'm trying to figure out how to ask it. What is the, on defense, for example, whenever you're seeing, like that sprint draw or just plays that are creating movement in the back, when you're a linebacker, your defensive linemen making sure that they do if they're stunning, for example, knowing the right, having the right assignment and knowing what to go to. When you're a linebacker watching those things happen, you're not supposed to have your eyes in the backfield, but that is, it has to be almost impossible.
Well, the thing is, you do read backs. They take you to the ball 90% of the time, but you've got to see through the lineman's block, and they'll take you to the ball, a lot more. Not as much nowadays, because they'll pull and go the other way with it, and that's why sometimes the back will take you there. But that one player, they gapped it up right. The linebackers did. They just didn't have the extra guy there. But you're right. Every defensive call, everybody has a gap, and those linebackers are your quarterbacks, and they've got to be able to get everybody lined up, and they've got to know their gap responsibility. Then they got to be disciplined enough to play that gap, even if it's away, because when the play goes away and you overrun it, that's when they get the cutbacks, and that's what they do when they zone. Everything's zoned up, and they get everybody running one way, and they cut back, and those linemen, man, they're good, man. They get you blocked, walled off, and it ends up being a big play. So, yeah, you can get stunts. Stunts is, it's not your stunts, man. they're all gapped up, and they teach that, and so they've got to stay in their gaps. They can't be walled in or out of their gaps, and if that happens, that creates a lane for the running back to run, and it's sometimes hard for guys.
Go ahead, Dad.
Oh, you lose me? Sorry.
Yeah, well, sometimes whenever I accept a speaker, it switches from accepting to mute everybody. So I think that's what happened earlier. My bad. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know where I left off, but anyway, what I was saying is that I don't know if you heard about when I was blitzing. You know, everybody still gap sound, and how that works is, and I've talked about this earlier a couple of Tuesdays ago, or maybe three, but we always put stakes. We visualize stakes in the ground, and when you're blitzing, you got to blitz at those stakes. You can't blitz at the linemen because they're moving, and if you do that, you'll maul up on them, and it'll create a big lane for the running back to run at. So. They all have gap responsibilities, and it's not, sometimes they, we're going to blitz, we're going to open up a gap or whatever. That usually is not the case, and if it happens, somebody just messed up. But yeah, any defense, a 3-4, that we're actually running a 3-4. I know we get a 4-down lineman, but it's based out of that 3-4, and you can really play a lot of games on defense when you're running that, and never know where your 2-eye and 3-eye is going to be, because you can slant it either way, and get some good calls, because they're doing a cut stunt without a ran with PJ yeah, I think it's PJ in it, number one. He's making a lot of plays, and that's what he's running, and it's a really effective play for us in the run game. So yeah, you just got to be gap sound, man, and got to line up right, and we'll be fine.
Let's go to Nate. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, Chad? I got a few points for you that I wrote down. One thing that I can think about is, Venables isn't in uncharted waters as a coach. He went undefeated, ran the table in 2018. He's seen the damn deal before. I just don't really think that it scares him or much intimidates that guy. So when I think about this team, I kind of want to ask your dad if it reminds him of 2000. I know we go there a lot thinking about it, but I just want to hear what he thinks about that comparison there.
In 2000, guys, you remember the Texas A&M game? Chad, you're talking about, there's a game. You know what I mean? And if the linebacker down there intercept the ball and score, we don't win that game, and we're probably not playing for a national championship game. So, I here's the deal. In 2000, believe it or not, and we're in 20, the offenses are really different. I mean, they're different than they are than they were back. I thought when I was coaching, when I was real young coaching, it was easy to call defense because they ran the I formation. My gosh, that was simple. But when you start opening it up, what they're running out, and they're running RPOs, and they're running that sprint draw, you didn't see a lot of that in 2000. That defense was uncommon in 2000. That was a special defense, and I think this one can be. We're just, it's just a different personality in the same aspect. Nate, I think they've got that ability to shut people out. We've seen it twice really on the goal line. How many times have we seen that in a few years? We haven't.
No, we have not.
Yeah, so I love watching them, man. They just make me excited, and I think they're going to come with passion every play, every week. It's just if we can get a running game on offense and opens up that passing game, I think we could win out.
Yeah, and that's good you bring that up. That's kind of leading into the second thing I'm fixing to ask Chad about. Is at the end of the day, is Dylan Gabriel our best running option? I mean, right now in the season, personally, I just think he's seeing the holes the best. I mean, you let the guys drop back in coverage. I mean, and you see it early on, like the touchdown to Nick Anderson. They're biting on that fake. I mean, everybody's coming up to the line of scrimmage. Why the dude's wide open in the back end? I mean, so I don't know. I don't know if you go more RPO and play him more like Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray. I mean, I think
Yeah, well, just
Sorry, guys.
no, you're
That's
good.
in the background. But no, I don't know that he's not our best threat in the backfield to carry the football right now. So that's kind of where I want to ask you next, Chad. I know that you've always told me how good Dylan Gabriel is, and the damn guy's made me a believer. So
Well,
I don't.
Dylan is right now. I mean, it is right now, but it's like you mentioned. You were spot on. Whenever you run those RPOs, or whenever he's able to run off a pass option or a pass play, the second level and third level are so much further back. You're getting 5-6 yards a pop. But the only issue with that is he's not a very big guy. And a few weeks ago, we had Blaine on from Crane & Co., and he mentioned, Dylan runs. He can run with his head high and his chest out a little bit, and he's not the biggest guy, and that can get you prone to being injured. Now, we have good backups behind him, but I still think Levy's not going to sit there and risk him, getting hurt by running him too much. If you notice in the UCF game, when we kind of stalled offensively, he did run a little bit more. And I remember I went down and my dad mentioned that. He started running a little more off those pass plays and off the pass options. And I think that comes directly from him realizing that, look, you can't start off getting no yards on first, getting no yards on second, and then your third, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, because your playbook's so isolated and it's so, shrunk from what you could be if you're 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. So, I mean, right now he is, and I think, that Sawchuk, and like we've been talked about, is going to be able to show that he can be that guy that gives us a huge boost in the run game. But I just don't think they're going to risk injuring him too much or wanting him to run very often.
Oh, and I'll be the first person to say, I mean, I think Gavin Sawchuk is, the best back on our team. I thought he was last year coming out of the Florida State game. I mean, everybody's seeing how good the Florida State front is right now. I mean, everybody's seeing it. Those guys are dominant, and we ran the football on those fellas last year more than they wanted. They had all they wanted. So, I mean, I don't know what offensive lineman combination that was or what scheme we were running or what we were doing there. But I think you look in the rearview mirror at that. As far as a running game, Chad, I mean, you don't have Javonte Barnes. That's the other guy that was carrying the football in that game. So, I mean, you go to the other guy, and it was Gavin Sawchuk. I mean, you don't set the 60-meter record in the United States if you're slow. So, I mean, the guy is obviously an absolute burner. But that's all I have on the offense. The other thing I want to touch on, Chad, I texted you this weekend in the group. I see our safeties overrunning a lot of footballs trying to make the interception. And not make the pass deflection, not make the sure hit like you saw the guy make on Drake Stoops that turns into the interception. I think if we slow down in the secondary and we really, really, really start kind of, I don't know, you play the ball, but you don't play the quarterback's eyes to a fault. And I think in the back end, your dad's a DB guy. He gets it. I think that we're seeing it. But we're seeing it so clearly that we're overrunning the play, and it's leading to big plays in the back end. I want to hear what he has to say about that. I know I've seen Key Lawrence do it, and then Billy Bowman, he did it twice last game, so it's got to be addressed.
Yeah, Dad, I want to hear that too real quick. Jay, I see your hand there. I'll go to you here in a minute, here in a second. Just real quick, on my opinion on that is, I think part of the blessing and the curse of getting so many turnovers early in the season is that you have a lot of guys being overly aggressive to get more turnovers in the pass game instead of making sure firstly that they have their assignment taken care of and that they're not giving up the play over the top. And sometimes when you're so overly aggressive, you can just get burnt. And I think that hurt us. We saw that. We saw that with UCF over the weekend, and we saw that again with back at the SMU game. And I think that might be a little bit of what's going on. Is just you have guys that see the turnover. The team's got the turnover bug on defense, and that's a good thing. But I think right now it could be a little bit of just they're overly aggressive. It's like when in golf when you're on you're making a lot of birdies. Sometimes you hit driver on a short hole when you shouldn't, and you hit it OB, and now you're staring double down the barrel.
And I definitely think that's what you're seeing, Chad. It's just going for the interception. But that's really all I had. The last thing I want y'all to kind of talk a little more on. Everybody always said was a mobile quarterback is kind of Brent Venables' kryptonite. And if the kid from Kansas plays this weekend, you're going to find out whether or not he's a kryptonite or not, because the dude is the definition of a dual threat. So eager to see that, eager to go into this game, and that's all I got for you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Nate. Thanks, man, a lot for hopping on. Appreciate it. Dad, real quick, and then Jay, I'll get to you. When you ran that same defense that Venables runs, at least in terms of the blitz schemes and the fronts. When you're dealing with a mobile quarterback, what are usually the responsibilities or assignments?
Well, a lot of times we had a spy, but you know, we didn't. It just depends on what they're doing. But like with Kansas, when we ran that 3-4, there's a lot of calls that you can get into that, like you said, you can roll to 3, you can roll to 2, and the biggest thing is that they don't know what you're running in the back end. If you listen to Venable's press conference, he mentioned about signals and about things that they're doing on the field. And you've got to be really careful as a DB as a group, as when you're running 2 or you're running 3 or running man, and they're giving hand signals. They got to change those because they watch for that. When I was coaching at OU, we had a guy with binoculars, and that's all his job was to look at the signals across the field and try to pick them up, and that's all he did. And so that happens, and you're exactly spot on. We've had a lot of interceptions, and I think those guys sometimes they're going for the ball instead of for the hit. I understand it, and we miss, and that's an all or none play. You know that because if you miss, you know what happens. I mean, they're running for the races to the touchdown, but that's what's going on, and I think that's my answer, Nate, on that deal. So, but I don't know. You just gotta bring your stuff, man. You gotta be gap sound. They're going to get you. You just got to control him. You control him through the 20, and then when you get to the 20, then that's when we've been pretty good at it. Make them kick field goals, and we got to score touchdowns, and we'll win the game.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Jay, man, sorry to keep you waiting. Go ahead, brother.
Oh no, you're good, my man. And just kind of answer even some of those questions, some of the thoughts I had with it, like with the secondary and their aggressiveness. I mean, yeah, that leads to turnovers. I mean, the other problem is that it also leads to you giving up a big play. And we saw that against Iowa State because we got a little cocky after that interception, and boom, next thing you know, we're giving up deep passes because instead of making wide receivers make a business decision, we decide to make our own business decision and go for an interception. Got to cut some of those out. I kind of prefer us making the wide receivers think twice about catching those passes across the middle with our safeties, but I think in time, I think they're starting to get smarter and wiser. And kind of like you said, Chad, before, we're building upon this team and understanding what we're doing and how to get better week over week over week. And then, like we talked about before with Jalen Daniels, I don't see him being that much of a threat this time around. He hasn't been healthy in 2 years, and it never fails that he goes down. And honestly, I don't see him even playing this week. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it makes sense to put him out there against a defense this tenacious and think that you're going to be able to have him play throughout the season. It's kind of like when Wyoming played against Texas. Their quarterback went down the week before, and they didn't play him against Texas because their goal is to win their conference championship. And so they looked at that Texas defense and said, you know what? Doesn't make sense to play him in this game. Now, granted, if they were smart and played him, they may have won that game because Texas was very sloppy, but they pulled their starting quarterback because they wanted to try to compete long term. And so honestly, for Kansas, playing Daniels, sure, that may be a good strategy, but at the same time, like I said, he's been hurt the last 2 years, and all we've seen from him is that back. And you aggravate that too much, that man may be done. He has to retire. You don't want that to happen. Like I said, against a tenacious defense like this, you don't want to do that. But coming into this game, the biggest thing for us defensively is just really being sound, gap sound, and not getting overconfident and just focusing on not beating ourselves. We have penalties that are dumb, as we've seen lately. That Canic penalty still just grinds my gears because once again we did everything that we were supposed to do, and we got the stop into fourth down. Then we decided to get more cocky and lose it. But last thing though, the comparison to the 2000 team, every week a buddy of mine runs stats on what we look like each game throughout it. And I try to drop a video each week. I'll probably drop one later on this week on this one. But the numbers wise, and Coach Dad, you were straight. You're right. The biggest difference between this era and back then is really the pass and the concepts or whatnot, right? But statistically, we're not very far off from what 2000 was doing, even if you add in that buffer of what we looked like about the passes and stuff, right? The passing yards and how much of an increase. We're very close numbers wise. It's amazing how close we are. And also, the one thing that a lot of people didn't recognize, we sucked at running in 2000. Like, we were bad. Quinn Griffin had 700 yards on the season. He didn't get 1,600 yards until 2 years later. Even though against Texas, he ran for like 8 touchdowns, we were horrible in the run game in 2000. It just was not good. And it may have been the fact that we were running an I formation, trying to run it down people's throat, and we didn't have Adrian Peterson yet to run for 1,900 yards as a freshman. But I think that as Salchuk gets healthier, the run game is going to get better. And then at that point, Dylan Gabriel can really leverage the RPO, get those yards like he did against Texas, run for 50 to 60 yards and slide, while also making it to where those linebackers have to be honest the entire game. If we pull them up, Nick Anderson and Farouk are gone for touchdowns. Jaden Gibson's gone for touchdowns. G Freaky's gone for touchdowns. But they're playing it smart because they know that they can give us space because they know that the run game just isn't there yet. Now, Salchuk second half, like I mentioned before, he's starting to look like he's getting his confidence back. It looks like he's not scared of that hammy anymore. And if that's the case, that man's going to be dangerous. Then we get in Tyree Walker, so we'll have the bowling ball as well as the speed. Yeah, I think we're going to be pretty solid. And Marcus Major's been dealing with that shoulder like all season. I think Venables mentioned that like slightly during the presser. If Salchuk's got his hammy right, we're gold in the run game for the rest of the season. We should have had it established before, but understanding that our problem has been health at the run game. It hasn't been anything else besides health. We get a healthy Salchuk and a confident Salchuk, him and Tywee's going to take over. We'll be golden moving forward.
No, absolutely. And like they always say, better late than never. At least he'll come on when he comes on. And that is such a good point too about when we get a run game going consistently. Right now we're not really that much of a threat to run the ball. So you're seeing a lot of defenses be shade a little more to the pass game. And that, it's not like he has the biggest windows to throw to currently. And whenever we can finally run the ball effectively and efficiently, we're going to have, I think we'll go back to, scoring over 50 on some of these teams. I think we can. I think we can score 50 on really any of them coming up, especially if we can get it, we can become balanced. Because, I know we all know it, but the larger story whenever, we had those great offenses in years past is we dominated in the run game. Like our whole offense was built, the foundation of it was establishing the run early. That opened up the pass game later. It wasn't what is it, like a Washington State or Kentucky State or whatever, where they throw it 70 times and we're passing it everywhere. It was, we're going to run it, we're going to be good at it, and whenever you try to stop it, we'll hit you over the top. And that has not been there this year as of yet. I still think we can develop it, even though it is already week 8. But once we are able to do that, I think we're really going to see the offense take off and score points and be able to score consistently, because run games can travel. Trying to throw it everywhere, every single game, that can be made difficult by weather conditions and, just by, quarterbacks off a little bit that day. But yeah, I totally agree on that point.
Especially in the rain, like as Tattoo mentioned, in this game, there's potential for rain and it's going to be a little wet and gross. Yeah, you want to make sure that you can have that RPO going, and we probably can run it down their throat if Salchuk shows his confidence and DG decides to go ahead and scramble in. Lastly, shout out to DG, man. He shut up so many people. I knew that he had a chance of being something. I didn't know Heisman caliber, but I knew that he could lead us to the playoffs just because he has the ability of throwing it and the confidence. But man, he has shut up so many people, even with his flaws. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'm cool with it. It looks like he can go for a Heisman. So why would I be mad at him making a mistake here or there?"
No, exactly, and I'll get to you in one sec, RX. Just whenever I would defend him last year, it was I saw the mistakes he made, but also I just thought that the whole, he's in like a hurricane of just, he's going to UCLA and then 2 days later he's at OU and he's trying to learn that. It was just this whole cluster of all this chaos going on, and everyone was trying to settle down. So I thought going into this year, he's developed chemistry with the receivers. He's had a whole off season this summer and all of that to develop even more timing and better timing with who is in now. And I did not think he'd be as good as he's been currently, and I really try not to be. I try to be objective, almost to the point where it can make some of my friends mad when we watch games and stuff, because I don't give OU the benefit of the doubt much. But right now, I don't see another player that's had a better Heisman moment. And especially when you look at the impact he has on our team. For me, he's my favorite so far to win it. Now, I don't know if he's a betting favorite. I haven't checked the odds, but I see JJ McCarthy mentioned a lot. I don't, and I think Michigan's good, and I know we can talk about what they're going through here in a minute, but I just don't see. I don't see them playing against elite competition, and I don't see them doing those things that really wow me or make me think, hey, I couldn't just implement another quarterback in that position and they would be just as good. Where I don't think you could just do well. I mean, Jackson seems like he'd be that good, but for right now, we don't know. But I don't know if you could do that with what DG has done so far. I don't think any quarterback can just go for that last drive like he did in the Red River, or any quarterback can be as good as he's been in the fourth quarter against SMU. You have to score a touchdown. He scores back-to-back touchdowns, doesn't miss a pass. Against Texas, have to score a touchdown. UCF, you have no chance but to score on that last drive, and he leads us down and we do it. So, and one thing I want to challenge OU fans to do is, man, like, we need to be confident in him and in promoting a Heisman talk, because even if you think he won't win, that's a big deal for recruiting. That's a big deal for the university as a whole. And what bothers me a lot, if I'm being honest, when I see OU fans in the comments of these odds saying, laugh out loud, DG's not this guy. It's like, we would never said that about Baker. We would never said that about Jalen or Kyler or any of them. Like, we need to take pride in the fact that he is a dude right now. Now, whether or not that means we make the playoff or anything, that's a different conversation in and of itself. But we need to have pride in the fact that DG is our quarterback, and damn it, we're going to do what we can to make sure he at least ends up in New York City. And we're going to retweet, we're going to support and say, that is the guy that should win it. And it makes me angry when I see OU fans be the ones that are chopping the wood out or chopping his legs out from under him on those things. And it's like, I get whenever people had opinions on him last year that he wasn't going to be good and he ends up being good. Like, fair, at some point you got to drop it. I've been wrong on opinions multiple times. I am a diehard disliker of Tom Brady. My life sucked watching the NFL, but I got over it. It is, things happen. You have takes that just aren't good at times. And so I would challenge all the OU fans, if you're listening, have some pride in the fact that we have a quarterback that is being looked at right now as a potential Heisman winner. So that's my little rant. Sorry to soapbox that. RX, go ahead, man.
Yeah, just kind of piggyback on what Jay was saying. Oh, by the way, Jay, I caught your YouTube with Sam. Great work.
Appreciate it.
Sawchuk is so raw right now. He only played in one game last year, and that was that Florida State game. I mean, that kid is still actually getting his college legs under him, and you combine, coming off an injury with lack of experience, he is just going to get better and better and better. And to me, he is the dude. If Barnes is not healthy, Sawchuk is the dude. No question.
Oh, my bad. I thought that was something to Jay.
No, that was it.
Okay, my bad. Let me go to my I think T had her hand up. Go ahead, Tierney.
So weird to hear you call me by my government name, but anyways, this is kind of the point in the night where I just sprinkle in a female voice and then I go running off to bed. But to build off what my husband said, which that's Chad, if anybody was wondering, with DG, like him mentioning, wanting to like boost him up because it's good for recruiting and all of that. Like, what blew my mind is on Saturday, there are people like literally messaging me or like mentioning me on Twitter, like, DG needs to find the bench. And I'm like, how are you watching this game? And that's what comes to your mind. Like, it just kind of blew my mind. But besides that, that's just neither here nor there. But I know there were a lot of like moments during the game that we were like, what the heck? But I am going to be an optimist, and I just want to point out some of the positives and some of the things that were great with that game. One, I thought punting, we had some of the best punts we've had all year, which, might not be saying much at all, honestly, but we had some really astounding punts. Two, I really liked when the Drake Stoops score. Not that I don't have faith in Drake Stoops, but Jaden Gibson got a beautiful block Drake cuts inside, and he's about to get hit and dives into an end zone. Like, nobody was stopping Drake from getting into that end zone, and I just loved that extra effort instead of shying away from any type of contact or just whatever. I should maybe be used to it by now, but after years of trauma, I'm not. I love seeing actual hits, football hits, manly, strong, I'm going to knock your head off hits. And two that stick out to me are Trace Ford in the first quarter and then Peyton Bowen's third down attempt. Those were beautiful, lovely, textbook, wonderful. And then I really liked, final thing, was not falling for the trick play on their 2-point conversion, like staying true, staying where they're supposed to be and staying true to home. Because, I mean, we had moments throughout that game where we fell for things. We got sucked in when we shouldn't and, got kisses blown at us because of it. So the fact that they kept their head on straight, focused up for one more play, and slammed the guy down, that was just lovely. And so those were some positives that I just wanted to throw out there that were my notices on Saturday. So my phone is dying and it is my bedtime. So bye, guys. See you next week.
Well, that's why I married her, folks. She knows football. Before I want to go to some games this weekend and get people's opinions on it, but I did want to shout out, just putting these on every week. And I don't make YouTube videos. I don't do any editing like that. But I did want to shout out Jay, and then I see a PG down there, just listening right now. Go look up their content if you don't watch it already. They really do a really good job, and I'm even more appreciative just kind of hosting these every week, these once a week things, of the work it takes just to put this together. And I couldn't imagine editing it and having to get clips put on top and just making a thumbnail. So if you don't already, just go try to support that and do all that. I don't know about how the YouTube algorithm works, Jay. You can let them know, but that's just a side note I wanted to make on that. And go show them love if you can. On top of going into this week, games this weekend, and I also, if anyone's kept up with the Michigan stuff, someone explained to me, like, for whatever reason, I just don't think it's that big of a deal, and maybe I'm crazy for that. I just think that people watch signs. Now, granted, he is now. All right. So my opinion is it's not a big deal. Where I understand why people think it is, and why I could even maybe be convinced it is typically when you're watching signs, you're doing it live in the game. You don't have the benefit of, being in an office watching replay of video you filmed, or if that's what happened, and getting to watch it over and over again to make sure the signs that you are associating with a play are correct. I understand that is different, and would be a huge hand up if you were able to make that actually work well. But like BV has even been known for being, it's just part of the game. I don't even think it's a bad thing to do. You're able to look at signs whenever you're in a game. I mean, I just don't. But maybe that's the difference. Dad, go ahead. Or I don't know whose hand was up. Jay, if
I
were
think
you up first?
Jay's hand was up first. Go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead.
Oh, appreciate it, Coach. I'll chime in, and Coach, you can kind of dive in with me on this one. So this is what makes it serious, right? Stealing signs, you're correct. Everybody does it. That's a very common practice, especially nowadays. That's why you have the 3 coaches there with the flags up, so you can see the different colors, and they do all kinds of random dances. Or you have the signs where you have the McDonald's, and then you have a Toyota, and all of that stuff. It's normal to figure it out, steal it, and pay attention to it, and be prepared to go against it, right? That is a very normal thing. This is where things are different. I have a buddy of mine that used to work where they put together a lot of the film and send it to the coaches, like the last 10 years. And the film that's usually sent to the coaches to watch is usually the All-22. It's not just a camera watching only the guys throwing up signs the entire game. And that is the reason why it's that serious, because this dude they were buying tickets. He's buying tickets in his own name like an idiot. You can see on Twitter, someone actually posted all of his Venmos, because, people put their Venmo public because, young people don't know how to keep shit private. He felt the need to have public Venmo that literally shows transactions to people around the time games were going on. So it wasn't just him, Connor, doing this. It was an elaborate operation. Now, this is the thing that really made it super serious is They've got footage of this dude with a phone in his hand pointing down at the benches, recording on one side. Supposedly he had one person, he was recording on one side and somebody else was recording on the other. So if you're recording and you literally have the hand signs, then the all 22 film with it, you put those times together, which most likely they did, they had an idea of which sign actually was the play. Now, granted, there's also the video where you saw Ohio State in the Ohio State game. CJ Stroud stood up, looked over at the bench to get the next sign, and you saw everybody on Michigan pointing they pointing up. Every player, coach, all of them was pointing up to the defense, and the defense was prepared. Granted, Ohio State scored on that play, so obviously Michigan couldn't figure out how to stop it. But that's the type of stuff that gives you kind of a leg up. You're prepared better to at least try to find a way to stop them. And so, yes, sign stealing is normal, but when you're doing it that elaborately and you're recording that much detail that you don't get as a coach to another coach, unless you're watching the TV screen, which even a lot of times when you're watching it on a TV recording, it doesn't show the coach's sign throwing out the signals too. So that's where it's serious. They fully went elaborate with it, and then they had a young person that was dumb enough to put everything public.
Well, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And admittedly, I haven't kept up with that story as much. I'm in midterms and different things like that, so I haven't read a ton on it. That makes sense. That makes sense. I've just kind of been skimming some of the articles and saw where he was, apparently he was buying tickets to Big Ten games.
This is how he got caught, though. This is the funny part. He got caught because Ryan Day and Ohio State had a private investigator watching the coaches at Michigan. They knew that they were doing this for a while.
No way.
And they figured, yes, they had a private investigator doing this. And when they started asking questions to all the other schools, they're like, wait a minute, let me see. Yes, that dude has bought tickets at our school. And it just kept going. And it kept snowballing. So, yeah, supposedly Ohio State has a private investigator that's been following what Michigan was doing because they had a feeling that they were stealing their signs. And guess what? Busted their butts.
That is wild. Dad, go ahead. You got something to add?
Yeah, they stole that from the Patriots. That's what they did. That's where that all started. So yeah, that's the truth. I'm with you, Jay. That's not right. I mean, you don't do that. It's different when you come into the game and you start trying to figure out what they're doing during the game. That's what everybody normally does. But I hadn't heard that either. I'm like Chad. I've just kind of skimmed over some of that stuff. That's bad, and I don't think that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's kind of fun to get up there during the game and try to figure out what they are. It doesn't always help you when you're on defense. Like you said, they scored on that one play. I mean, it happens. But my gosh, I didn't realize they were really taking to what the Patriots did. That's amazing.
I will if the Patriots or Brady catch a stray in any criticism, I will be all for it. That has been my he's been my kryptonite my entire life. RX, go ahead, and then by the way, if you are just real quick announcement, if you are just joining the space and want to speak or want to get a point across, just request to speak and I'll bring you up. Just wanted to let y'all know. Go ahead, RX.
Yeah, I was reading that stuff that Jay was talking about, and the whole time I was reading it, I was like, Michigan's going to the SEC. That's the most SEC move I've heard of in a long, long time out of these teams.
Well, and it's one of those things where I'm sure other teams have done it. I'm sure other teams do continue to do it. But it's Harbaugh has been, I think, a couple things too. And just in the past, Harbaugh said been critical of the NCAA. And when you are critical about investigatory bodies and you motivate them to want to look into your dirty laundry, they're going to find something eventually.
Right, but nobody tattles on each other quite like the SEC. And the fact that Ohio State was watching Michigan cheat is the most SEC thing I've seen in a while. Because every SEC offseason, Tennessee's finding something on Bama. Bama's finding something on Auburn. Auburn's finding something on Ole Miss. It's just hilarious.
That's a great point. That's very, very true. Okay, Sooners, you have something you want to say?
You bet. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Go ahead.
All right. Well, it's weird that we brought up the Michigan thing because I had just posted, I guess this is my first time to be in the space, but to the left, there's that, not a chat box, but tweets. And I don't know if everybody can see that, but I had just posted that it was off topic and I hoped it was okay. But CBS is now reporting that Harbaugh is stepping down. So it is that serious.
You are breaking news right now. Breaking news in the Sooner Space Tuesday.
Can you guys see the tweets on the left side? I'm scrolling through it. Is there what I'm seeing is to the left of the box that we're in, where it shows all the speakers. Can everybody see the tweets to the left? Is that part of our chat? Because I see Chad Smith at the top, and then underneath
Are you on
the
your
Sooner
computer
Space.
or phone?
I'm on my computer.
Yeah,
I'm
the
gonna post the
phones
link.
are different. Yeah, post the link.
Let me post the link. Can you see the link I just posted to the left? Breaking news from Brenton Kelly, CBS Brenton. He's from the Boston Globe, employed by ESPN. Because I checked it before. I thought this is BS. And then I saw who he was, and I thought, oh, wait a minute. And then he even tags, and he tagged CBS Sports, and it says confirms, or CBS Sports confirmed it, and he tagged the NCAA football.
It is showing up. I'm on computer.
Can everybody
see it? Yep, I do see it.
Breaking: Michigan's Jim Harbaugh is expected to step down as head coach in the coming days. They even named the other coach already. It says this is amid numerous recruiting infractions and sign stealing allegations. The University of Michigan will promote OC Sharon Moore to interim head coach. CBS Sports.
Okay, Sooners with the breaking news. Wow, that is
get the Lincoln Riley
wild.
tracker out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I mean that ends up being true. That is wild. I don't know. I'm one of those. I'm skeptical over people. What I've learned with media recently, through the years, is everyone wants to be first. I wait about 24 hours, 2 days. But I'm sure you agree with that. I know that.
Absolutely.
But that is wild if that is true.
That's why I clicked on his name, because I don't know who the hell Brenton Kelly is, but his CBS Twitter handle is at CBS Brenton. So apparently he is somewhat.
Well, and listen, we're sharing articles here. If you want, newspaper news, go to your local Ramada Inn next to the free milk and get you a USA Today.
Yeah, that one is 100% fake.
Okay.
No
100%.
Shit. Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, that. Well, twofold. One, shout out to Travis Davison for this. Uh-oh. Did y'all lose y'all?
Uh-oh, lost you. There you go. You're back. You're back.
There you go. I'm back. Sorry about that. Shout out to Travis Davison. That profile picture is from a dental advertisement in some random state.
Oh, great.
That I'll retweet that. Actually, I'll add it to the space right now so y'all can see. Cosmetic dentistry is what that picture is from. So yeah, he's a completely 100% fake account. He ain't going nowhere. Nothing's been announced yet. Nothing from ESPN. Nobody else.
I'm sorry, guys.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. Don't worry about it at all, man.
Well, us firefighters in Owasso, we have our finger on the pulse of college football.
Dude, don't worry about it at all, dude. That's awesome.
Wow.
Hey, a little excitement though on a Spaces Tuesday. That was awesome.
I tried.
It's all good. It's all good. Do you have any? What are your thoughts on the whole deal though? I mean, are you kind of like everyone else, where it's this is different because of the fact he was there? He had guys going to games.
Well, yeah, the speaker right before me nailed it on the head. I thought at first, so what? Stealing signs is not illegal. They do it in baseball. I mean, you can go scout at baseball. I mean, I've been in lots of baseball tournaments. We go watch the other teams. But when I saw that, when we started getting the news about the staffer who was buying the tickets, for 11 of the Big Ten programs, and I'm thinking, now this is a whole different animal, because somebody posted the actual NCAA bylaw where it's a clear violation. And when I read that, then I thought, okay, this is, I feel like the last speaker, I felt like, okay, this is legit. This isn't just scouting. That's legal. This is spying. This is he was using video recording. And then when we saw the video highlights from last year, where the minute the play call came in, the very first play of the game, the minute the play call came in against Ohio State, Michigan, every player on the sideline started pointing to the sky like they knew. I mean, even I saw a post today from Gabe Eichard. And he said in all his 11 years of being on the sideline of football games, he's never at any game ever seen an entire team do hand signals like that. And he said he knew immediately that something was up. That's just not normal. Teams don't do that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a great point by Gabe. It did seem kind of odd that they all knew that a pass was coming, regardless of if you could stop it or not. It seemed like that was a little bit of a weird one. But Colton, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, kind of piggyback off what you said earlier. We don't really do the whole YouTube thing. So I just wanted to plug, Jay's channel and Press channel on there, Unfair Sports, obviously on YouTube, and then the PG Show _ CFB on YouTube. So we are recording this space today, so it's going to be on Twitter. So anybody hearing that back, just go check those guys out on YouTube. That's really all I had.
For sure. Yeah, they do really good work, man. I've been watching Jay stuff for a while now. He's always done a really good job. RX, did you have your hand up? Did I skip over you, or am I imagining that?
No.
Okay, well that makes me feel better. I thought maybe I missed it. Want to kind of, again, if you are new to the space and want to say something, just give me a request and I'll try to get you up here. But right now we kind of I want to get some thoughts on what is going on, and I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to make this about USC or anything. But I with all the, with Lincoln missing practice today, with kind of the rumors about, and I sent out a tweet that kind of got a lot of pub about him. I don't think he wants to coach in the Big 12, and I'm just wondering anyone else's thoughts on that. Is that a crazy idea, or what do y'all think? Anybody can go, really. We're not do hands
Urban
right now.
Meyer. Who'd you have in mind?
For USC?
Yeah. No, I mean, you said Lincoln Riley coaching in the Big 12. Where do you see him going?
I don't think he'll want to coach in the Big 10. I think he'll try to go to the league. Because I think he just likes that life, the job a little more. I think he would be more fit for that. I think, dude, and I think A&M might have this thought too, is I know they have to pay Jimbo out a lot of money, but imagine you get a guy like Dion or someone at an A&M with that kind of backing and that kind of the kind of money and the kind of just the infrastructure they have at A&M. And you already look what he's doing at Colorado. I think that A&M, that'd be a good move for them. I think that he provides. I think he's a good coach, not only for the X's and O's part, but for the life part of the job. And I think that he gives. I love when he talks about, kids need to hear the truth and don't need to hear, what's just good and what makes them feel good. I think that's a good thing to have as a coach. And I was just curious kind of what y'all thought about that. Jay, what do you think?
Let me get off mute. I do think that Lincoln is heading out. I mean, I'm about to add a tweet from, it looks like, Cliff Kingsbury is being promoted from being an analyst to an assistant coach now, while Simmons is running the interim head coach spot. And there's been a few people that's been tracking planes. There's been some planes going from LA, private jets from LA to Chicago on Monday. And then one went from that same hangar that Lincoln used before down to Dallas, today, I believe. And so, yeah, there's speculation that, he's definitely going to follow Caleb to wherever he gets drafted, most likely to Chicago. They're going to figure out how to get him there because, yeah, I think he's done. He recognized that, not only that Alex Grinch is not good enough to he can't fire him, because I don't think he can get anybody else to take the job, because, rumor has it he's not very much liked around college football. So it's going to be tough to find somebody to take a job with someone that they don't like. Now, of course, the thing everybody's floating is Ed Ogeron, which I think, LOL, is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life, because there's a reason why that man got fired from LSU after winning a national championship 2 years later. And it wasn't because the team was just getting bad. The dude, if you heard the stories, the dude had a whole bunch of women's at the practices, and he even let some of the women's call plays. Now, you may be asking, women's, how is this happening with women's with this man? Well, after he won the national championship, he divorced his wife, Miss Kelly. After he divorced Miss Kelly, that man became the governor of Louisiana, and he definitely lived the life as if that is who he was. So you bring him to LA single and still coming off the high of being a national championship coach. Yeah, that's not a good idea for what actually already went down at LSU the last 2 times he was there. So yeah, you can bring him in. He's a very good defensive coach, but I don't know if you want that headache. But I think that the replacement is most likely Cliff Kingsbury. I think that's why they convinced him to come and be an analyst, just because they wanted to bring him in as the OC with Clay Helton, which I think they were going to fire Helton, promote Cliff, and give him the job. But Cliff was smart. He took the job in the NFL. At least give it a try. You don't pass on the opportunity to be an NFL coach. And NFL coaches wouldn't hire him as an OC because they fear that if he does do good, they will lose him as a head coach somewhere else. And so that's the reason why he got the Cardinals job. He was like, well, screw it. If we're going to potentially lose him as from OC to be head coach, just make him head coach and see how it works. And yeah, so I think Cliff takes over for him. I don't see Urban Meyer taking any jobs. I don't think anybody takes the risk of hiring Urban Meyer. Probably the only school that would do that will be Texas A&M if they ever fire Jimbo Fisher, in which the smoke is supposedly building up that they're trying to find the $200 million to get rid of this dude. I say $200 million because they got to buy him out at like 80-something million. And then the next coach, Jimmy Sexton, will not allow them to take that job for less than 120 mil. That's just point blank period. Jimmy Sexton owns the SEC and he likes his money. And that's just kind of how it is. They're going to get punked. So you take what Jimmy Sexton offers you, and 120 is the minimum for a job that a coach had and was so darn mediocre that they're going to look at that and be like, man, y'all paid him that for 7 wins. I better get double that for me to get you 9. You know, dims the rules. That's the game.
If Lincoln did stay at USC, the only 2 he could go after, and one of them would be Jim Leonard would be the best, but I don't think he wants to go back to being an assistant again. I think his next job he takes, he wants to be a head coach. And then the other would probably be Tom Allen, who stepped in as the head coach at Indiana. He ran a good defense in Indiana when he was the defensive coordinator there. That would be a good pickup if he was able to get him. I just don't see him wanting to stay. I don't think he likes recruiting that much. I didn't get that feeling whenever he was here at
Agreed.
OU. I just don't think he enjoys the process of having to have connections in different regions and really scouting out the players. And I think that, and it would be different whenever you're doing it, you're scouting, college talent, because they're much more tested. They have a lot more film on them and, they're more developed. I just don't think he has that kind of drive.
I know, I agree. I think honestly what's funny is I've been thinking about this the last a week or two, especially after their losses. Who would be a good coaching combination to hire? And some of y'all may laugh at me when I say this, but Matt Campbell and John Heacock were probably an amazing combination of coaches at USC. They can recruit. You see what Campbell's doing right now with nothing. This man is making lemonade out of I don't know what, but especially with Rocco. Rocco Becht is a lot better than I thought he would be. Like he's going to give Texas fits. Not only him, but Heacock's defense, they're going to give Texas fits in a couple of weeks. So they better pray that Quinn Ewers is healthy because he's going to give them fits. So you take him, put them out there in LA with the talent that they can accumulate, and Matt Campbell's actually a good recruiter. Bruh, USC could be
just about
dangerous.
Yeah, Matt Campbell is a good recruiter. People forget that, man. He was the guy. He was going to be the guy for OU before Venables really came. Before I think they were pretty much ready to. Weren't they ready? I think they were ready to go with him, or he had everyone there, but they wanted Venables at the end, which I'm happy for. But to go to your point, Jay, he is a very good recruiter, and you get guys like what he's had at Iowa State to end up being as good as they've been in years past. You not only are a good recruiter, you know how to coach.
Yeah, and everybody's jumped all over him and saying that he's been one of the coaches that's kind of a waste. Like, oh, he's not as good as, he's been rated, blah, blah, blah. This year, he completely shut up doubters. People are like, well, okay, with the fact that you lost 6 starters because they don't know how to not gamble in Iowa, and well, granted, the Iowa players that actually gambled were very smart gamblers. Shout out to my guy Ty Hayes at Around the Table Sports. He pointed out the fact that the Iowa players were taking the under in their own game. Genius. That is genius betting advice that you should take from them. But the fact that he was able to do what he's doing right now, deplenish from starting quarterback. I mean, Hunter Deckard was supposed to be the starter, and he's supposed to be the starter for at least 2 years, so that he's got some continuity. You bring in Rocco, and this dude is, like I said, man, he looks a lot better than we expect. So, yeah, Matt Campbell shut some folks up. I think he's going to be up for some jobs, and I think he's not going to be stupid this time around. He's going to actually take that job that's offered to him this year.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and RX, go to you 1 second. I just want to make this last point. Speaking of just showing you're a good coach, I'll be honest. I think Gundy is making a good case about how good of a coach he is right now. Remember when they were 1-2, and everyone was freaking out, and he goes, "Look, I don't think we're that far off. We just got to fix a few things." Or what were they? Maybe they were 2-2, or I can't remember. But they weren't playing well at the beginning of the year. And man, you beat Kansas State by 8, and you beat Kansas by 7, and then you put 48 on West Virginia. I mean, he's really turned it around. I'll be interested to see how they play Cincinnati coming up, but I think he's shown, he does a good job too of getting recruits to Stillwater and making the most of the players that they get up in Stillwater at Oklahoma State. So it's been cool to kind of see that turn around up there, and it's only going to help OU for sure if they can somehow crack the top 25. That would be big. That'd be really big for Bedlam, because I'd give OU another, if they end up winning for sure, they give them another ranked win. Would only look better in the playoff committee's eyes. And also, I think we're going to start seeing if our offense can, which I hated that they couldn't score much this weekend, but I think they need to start looking at style points. You've got to start blowing some of these teams out, even if, no mercy on them. And I don't think that they will, but that's just the second point. Go ahead, RX. Sorry to keep you waiting that long, man.
Yeah, no, y'all hit the dude that I thought would have been the guy is Matt Campbell. Because if you remember, he was a finalist back when Harbaugh was flirting with the NFL for the Michigan job. He was, he's always been highly thought of. He's a program builder, which is everything that is opposite of Lincoln Riley. He gets along well with the media. He gets along great with his players. I mean, early in the season, he wasn't getting along with his own fans, but it appears they've got that worked out. But he would be my answer. If I was them, he would be my answer. But again, going back to the USC question, the glitz, the glamour, the Hollywood, is that enough for them? But here's my question. If Riley does this after 2 years, my God, he is a program crusher. How in the hell would he get a job when he loses his job in the NFL?
Well, I don't disagree with you there about the program crusher aspect. How would he get a job? Listen, you have 3 Heisman winners in the offense. Someone will find him a job. But how do you get an elite job? I don't know. I don't know what.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was saying. If you want to coach UTEP, that job's available.
Yeah, fair enough. And I figured that, but yeah, I don't know how I wouldn't trust him if he's my AD. If I'm the AD, I mean, I don't know how you can. Are you really here to build a program, or just am I just a stepping stone to wherever you want to be next? I don't. I would want some more reassurance and more commitment, at least for my head coach, if I was going to make that change. But I don't know. I don't know. It seems like I'm glad that we don't have to worry about that as it seems right now. That's for dang sure.
Well, and if this thing goes down this way, the exact same way it went down at OU, I mean, you talk about vindication for the OU fans with all these trolls that have been all mauling us and calling us sensitive and everything else. The vindication is going to be epic.
Well, yeah.
So
go ahead, Rocker.
Yeah, I just want to get y'all's thought on something real quick. So I put out a tweet the other day that got a little popular, but it was about how I was super excited for the Alex Grinch hire when he came to OU. And I was just wanting to get y'all's thoughts on, like, a lot of people were saying in the replies to that they don't think it's all Alex. I mean, it's obviously not all Alex Grinch, but a lot of people were saying that they don't think it's Alex Grinch, and they think it's more Lincoln Riley that's the problem. What do you guys think about that?
Well, okay. First thing, I think, Dad, you'd probably have a good perspective on this because you did the job for a while. But I think first, when you want to criticize coaches, I think you go through steps. First is, do they have the athletes to run the scheme they want to run? I think at USC you're going to be hard pressed to say they can't get athletes there. Now, maybe you make the argument that, he came in, he's only been there for 2 years, he hadn't been able to develop that kind of talent or get the players he wants in. That's harder to make when you have the transfer portal, and it's even harder to make whenever you have a history that he had at OU, because he did get recruiting classes in that fit his scheme, or that I believe he thought fit his scheme, because that's who he recruited. There's something I don't. Lincoln could, probably be better in terms of, trying to sustain drives, but also, you score when you score for the most part on offenses. Like I hear people be critical of that. And Levy, I think, did make some good corrections, because there are times whenever you don't have to go, full speed and NASCAR, like they say, running your plays whenever you're in the middle of the game. But I don't, Grinch for me has, and I'll go to Dad, I want to hear your thoughts after this. But Grinch for me, what I've always struggled with Alex Grinch is, it seems like he wants to be that like Daniels for the Miami head coach right now, is really that kind of like intellectual new age guy that has these cool schemes, but they work. And for me, Grinch comes off like that, where, there are basics right now that, like, you guys, Kirby Smart. He's like, when I wanted to turn around Georgia, you recruit the defensive line inside out, and then you get a good offensive line, and you don't have to make it an algebra problem or some rocket science problem. You go to your basics. And for me, it's like, you hear about Grinch getting this 270-pound D lineman right now, and he's real quick and fast. And it's like, yeah, he'll just get ran over by bigger linemen like that are at Georgia or these elite teams. And that's what's always bothered me. It's like that speed D stuff, like that works. You want fast players, but you got to have size. You're not going to be able to compete with people in the trenches, and you'll just get ran through. Like we obviously saw whenever we went to play Georgia, and we couldn't stop the run very well. But that's just my 2 cents. I'm not an expert in terms of that. Dad, what do you say? What do you think?
Well, for one thing, I don't know why he went with out there to USC anyway, because he knows that guy's not going to recruit defense. I mean, he's got what he's got, and I have to admit, when he came, everything fitted up better than it did the year before when he was coaching. It's just that he didn't have the players that they had on offense. And to be fair with him, now he did some stuff that I didn't like, but he did some good stuff, and you can see it at USC. I mean, look at Notre Dame. I mean, they just ran all over them because they don't have the guys up front. And if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm not going with Lincoln Riley. Heck no, I'm not going there, because I know what he's going to do. He's going to you're going to die on the vine as a defensive coordinator, and he's going to score 50 points and try to outscore everybody. So that's on him a little bit. I know he probably felt like he had to go because of the way that everything happened, but you have to recruit better people up front. It's all about, you can always say, you can do all the X's and O's you want, but if you don't have the Jimmy and Joes, you're not winning. And that's how Alabama wins. That's how Georgia's winning. And I think that's how we're going to win. We're getting there in that way. But I thought he was better. I thought, we talked about Chad. Things are fitting up better. It looked a little bit better. But he never got the recruits that I think he really wanted. And I don't think he's getting them at USC. And you can get people at USC. I'm sorry, you can recruit there. And it's on Lincoln Riley.
Well, right, and it's a snowball effect, because recruits have, they look at the success of your defense as well. Like, what great defensive player, if you're a defensive lineman, doesn't want to play at Alabama or Georgia right now? Like they put guys in the NFL, and you could have the best scheme in the world, but if it hasn't been working, and recruits see that, they're going to be hard pressed to let them be the people that prove you right whenever it's such a big risk. And for me, I've just always, I don't know, Bear Alexander is, by the way, side note on that, and then I'll go to you, Chief. I see your hand there. I don't make fun of him for crying. I like when players care that much. I feel like he really did feel bad that he, first off, I don't think he should have been kicked out. I know that's by the rule. He should have been out, but it's a face mask to face mask. The guy was fine. For me, just to be objective, in my opinion, and I'm not saying it's right, but I don't know. I hate that he was kicked out for that. I like that he cared so much that he was crying over there. And it means a lot whenever you put a lot of effort into the sport and into what your craft. And he was, he wasn't out there to help his team. And who knows if it'd have been different if he was. But I just don't. Dad? Let me ask you this real quick. What bothers me about the Grinch stuff is, even though he hasn't had his guys, or that he's been better in fits, the tackling has never been good. And I feel like that's a coaching thing.
I agree 100%. The tackling was the issue. We never could tackle that receiver that caught that little hitch. He was gonna run for 10. This year, we're making that play, and it's always good. It's always awesome. I've got to say one thing, and my brother uh, mentioned this to me over the weekend, and he made a great point. When USC played this past week, and they got beat by a quarterback that was a walk-on that had no money and broke. All he had was what they gave him. He got a scholarship in the spring, and that sucker played. He had his jersey was dirty and everything. Then Caleb's over there making millions of dollars, sitting on the bench, crying, feeling sorry for himself. That young man should have got up and walked right across that field and shook his hand and told him what a great job you did in this game. You're a stud. And that's a man, not a guy pitter patting over that makes $1 million. He gonna find out in the NFL that can't happen. He's going to have to be more of a team player. Are you still there?
Yeah, I am. My mic's cutting in and out. My bad.
Yeah, I thought something was wrong. Okay.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, just real quick to your point about him going to the NFL. I was talking with Derek and a couple of friends this weekend at the OU game. Jay, I'd like your opinion too, and then Chief as well. But one thing that Caleb is going to have to get good at doing is taking the open route when it's there off rip, because I'm saying right now, and I've heard just listening to NFL linemen talk, they have their job. They're getting graded, in the way they provide for their families is being able to protect the quarterback and give him time to throw. And if they are making a pocket for you, and instead of you staying in that pocket, you are running out of it and getting sacked and getting hit, that is going to create issues that go beyond you just not being able to compete or being able to make the play. Like, there are realities other than just knowing where to throw the ball. And one of them is, those guys are doing you can't just be running everywhere and trying to make these crazy highlight throws, because eventually, that'll get you beaten. And even Mahomes doesn't do that all the time. He doesn't always make those circus throws. He's very good at taking what the defense gives him. I think he had to learn a little bit of that, and I think Caleb can. That would be my one piece of advice to him.
Yeah, and if you want to see an example of what you're actually talking about, go look at Russell Wilson in the last few years at Seattle. Basically, having Russ cook, that's a problem for quarterback, because most of those sacks that Russell Wilson took was because of his own fault. Most sacks, to me, I consider a quarterback sack, because in a lot of situations, it's the quarterback that don't get rid of the ball in time. Now, granted, you have those busted plays, similar to what we saw when Dylan Gabriel got sacked against UCF, where they just completely whiff and the quarterback just gets leveled because they don't have time. But a lot of the times it's the quarterback holding the ball too long. You got to get rid of that ball between 3 and 4 seconds if you really want to survive at quarterback. And a lot of your greats were infamous for getting rid of the ball within 2.2 to 2.5 seconds. They got rid of that thing. And Caleb's problem is that, one, he's not very good at reading defenses. You can tell. That's kind of where his scramble plays come from. Granted, he is as agile and mobile as the way we see Mahomes play, but the bigger difference, and this is something I got to give the shout out to Colin Cowherd on this. I know a lot of people hate him, but I kind of like some of his philosophies overall. But one thing he's always said in his younger years was the difference between quarterbacks in college and the NFL is in college, quarterbacks are throwing to wide open players. In the NFL, you got to throw them open. And I haven't really seen Caleb throw anybody open, like throw in anticipation with a wide receiver. As soon as they make the break, the ball's at their face. You don't see that very often from him because most of his receivers are butt naked open. So why do you need to do that? They're easy to see when ain't nobody 2 to 3 yards away. Now, granted, he can throw it if there's maybe a 2 to 3 yard gap, but he's got to be able to throw when there's only a 1 yard gap. And like I said, as soon as the receiver make that break, the ball's in his lap and he can go. So Caleb's got some work to do in that capacity if he wants to be an elite NFL quarterback. We're seeing this right now with Justin Fields. He has moments where he does it, then other moments he's running around in circles and then he's getting lit. So unless he wants to end up with PTSD like David Carr had while he was at Houston, where he lived on his back more he did underneath the quarterback, underneath the center, He's going to have to do a better job of getting rid of the ball and reading those defenses properly. Now, I do believe he has the capabilities to do that. We've seen him have elite moments, but if you really think about it, when he's played in the bigger games, he hasn't been all that great in most of those games. It's like he saves the day, but it's just raw talent there. It's not him being an actual quarterback saving those moments.
No, and that's a great point about especially about the big game. The point you made at the end there. Go ahead, Chief.
What Jay was talking about with the receivers running wide open, that was the one thing I think I've seen like Lincoln Riley in a press situation where I wasn't like screaming at my phone. It was like him getting asked about the wide receivers creating separation, and he replied, he was like, "Oh no, I thought our separation was fine. You know, you're not gonna have a wide receiver running 5 yards open every play," and that's true. And that's been the one thing I've noticed is like when Caleb Williams hits a big play, the dude is just wide open.
No, he schemes them open, man. He's the one thing you can't doubt. I mean, Lincoln knows how to scheme for sure. Prime, you got something?
What are we talking about?
Oh, I saw you request up. I thought you were going to mention that. We were just talking about the Caleb Williams USC stuff
Oh.
and in general.
Low key, Caleb, he's been really iffy this year, and like I guess throughout his career, like I'm seeing his stats against top 25 defenses, and it's like actually kind of concerning. I think my thoughts on it is like I feel like Lincoln. Chad, I know you said this before. I feel like Lincoln's just like out of it. Like I just don't. I genuinely. I don't think he wants to do this anymore. And like I honestly, I think he leaves after this offseason and goes like be's an offensive coordinator because like as much as we want to diss Lincoln, I think it's more of just like he's inept to like he doesn't want to recruit. He's inept to defensive talent, standard or like putting a good defense on the field, and like I just think he doesn't like I don't think he wants to manage an entire team. Like I think he would rather go be an offensive coordinator, do what he wants in the NFL, and USC is just so weird to me because like last year, I guess Lincoln like that offense just needs an offensive line so bad, and he had Bill all the years at OU, and then last year they had like two uh, NFL draft picks at offensive line, so they were just fine. And now like the offensive line ineptitude is so bad. Like honestly, that outside of the defense is their biggest issue by a landslide. Their offensive line is so bad to an extent that like you mix Caleb's like I think like inability to just take the easy throw plus that offensive line like it just creates so many big issues.
Yeah. That's why back then I was, whenever it was projected that OU and USC might meet up in a bowl game, I was praying for it. We would have a field day against that offensive line. It would have been fantastic. But Dad, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment on Caleb and going to the NFL. Guys on here, if you haven't seen the Netflix series Quarterback, it was about Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. Guys, it's unbelievable what those quarterbacks have to do to prepare for a game. It's unbelievable the study, the heartache, everything that Patrick Mahomes, I got so much more respect for him. That guy's a worker and a studier and a team player. And Kirk Cousins is too. It's amazing. If you haven't watched that series, you need to watch it. I couldn't stop watching it. And it just so there is a huge that's why it's hard for those college kids to jump in the NFL and be really successful because for one they don't know how to study, for two the play calling is unbelievable and to remember it's just amazing and the game's so much faster. But I just recommend, I know you guys love football and everything, if you haven't watched that series on Netflix Quarterback, you're missing out a great documentary. It's awesome, and I don't think Chad's watched because he's in law school. But if he ever does, he's gonna love it because he played that position.
Yeah, it's on my list for sure. I just I just don't have time right now. I'm gonna have to end it here in a second. I want to get some score predictions before we go. RX, give us your score for this weekend.
I got 45-17.
Damn. That'd be fantastic. Prime, what do you got?
I'm going to go 38-24.
Prime, by the way, did you tell me you just took the ACT?
Yes, dude, it was ass. Oh, my God.
Dude, you are so much younger than I thought you were.
Yeah, no, I'm a junior.
That's wild, man. Well, hope it went well, dude. That is a test I never want to take
No,
again.
I got a 22 last year, and I got a 29 on reading, but my math, I'm inept to math.
Man, you're talking my language.
Yeah.
With that.
No,
that is not.
so
that's not fun.
I know I did better on reading and English. Like I'll probably get like a 30-some on both of those, but math I feel just about as confident as I did last year.
Well, a couple 30s will help you out. That'll balance out real well. Awesome.
Yeah, journalism major. So
there you go. What was your score again? My bad.
Well, last year it was a 22 with a 29 on reading.
What was your OU Kansas score?
Oh, 38-24.
38. All right. Well, hope it goes well, man.
Thank you.
Chief, what do you got?
38-20.
38-20. Then my co-host, I don't know why I can say that. I want to say Colton and co-host at the same time. What do you got, Colt?
I'm going to go with 41-17.
God, all these are covering. I love it. I'm going to go 43-23. I think that maybe they get a late score whenever we come in at the end. And with that, I want to thank everyone joining again. We're on for about 2.5 hours.
One bold statement, Chad.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna run the ball well this week.
There you go. Prediction. That'd be big.
Bold statement.
Bold statement. All right, we're gonna run the ball well. We're gonna win. We're gonna cover. I just want to say, man, I really, really appreciate everyone joining again every Tuesday at 8. We try to run these. And if you didn't request to speak, do it next week. We have a lot of different people on, but obviously we enjoy hearing from people that have done it for a living, like many people on here, like my dad and different those that have coached the game and whatnot. But again, every Tuesday at 8, we kind of try to make it a fun environment. So again, don't feel like you need to be an expert or have a bunch of things to say. Just come up and give us your take on the weekend. So I'm excited to see us play this weekend. Hopefully we come back, we'll be 8-0, and we can look forward to Bedlam. So everyone have a good night. Boomer.
Sooner.